Deep within a cave settlement, a tense crowd gathers. A warrior urges a priestess and a young girl to cooperate, pressuring the girl's father to finally take a stand. Meanwhile, a young man watches from his computer screen, casually offering advice as if it's just another game. This is the tale of how a shut-in transformed into a god of fate, saving a village and being saved by them in return. 1 month earlier, the disheveled young man sits at his parents' table as his mother grills him about his failed job hunt. She worries about his future, but he snaps, slamming the table and rudely demanding she shut her mouth. As she scolds his laziness, he silently curses his decision to wake up early just to endure another lecture. He abruptly storms off to his room, leaving his food behind while fully aware of how pathetic he's become. After coasting through a bottom-tier college, he found himself facing a reality he simply wasn't prepared for. Despite his initial efforts to find work, every single company rejected him without a second thought. His motivation withered away as he watched his peers leave him behind in the dust. A full decade has now slipped through his fingers since the day he graduated. Now over 30, he's a total NEET, painfully aware that his former classmates all have steady careers and families. His self-loathing is interrupted halfway up the stairs by the sudden chime of the doorbell. Checking the intercom, he sees a delivery man holding a package marked with a mysterious, unknown logo. Intrigued, he decides to head down and claim the delivery himself. His mother suspects he's wasting money, but he insists it's just a prize from an online raffle. To cope with his crushing guilt, he spends his days entering contests, often hiding his more embarrassing winnings from his parents. He signs for the package, feeling the courier's judgment and the piercing stares of his neighbors. His mother fires off one last sharp remark as he retreats with his mysterious prize. Alone in his room, he unboxes a mysterious blank disc titled The Village of Fate, suspecting it's just an alpha test. An enclosed note confirms his selection for a groundbreaking experience featuring the most lifelike characters ever created. As the god of fate, his mission is to guide helpless villagers and build their community from the ground up. Yoshio finds the setup suspicious but assumes it's a standard builder, despite the strict warning against sharing details online. The developers threaten to revoke his access if he disobeys, leaving him baffled by the lack of a formal contract. The instructions demand a constant internet connection and warn that if the village is destroyed, the game ends forever. Yoshio scoffs at these brutal rules, questioning if they're even feasible for a modern game. Hesitant to install it, he scours the internet but finds absolutely no trace of the title anywhere. Fearing a virus, he decides to run it on his old computer, convinced the whole thing is likely a low-quality hoax. Being a veteran gamer, Yoshio reluctantly agrees to play, vowing to expose the developers if this turns out to be a scam. The game boots up with a generic, unimpressive title screen that does nothing to change his mind. However, the moment he hits enter, his jaw drops in absolute shock. A cinematic masterpiece unfolds as a cart barrels through a forest with hyper-realistic graphics unlike anything he's ever seen. A rugged, battle-scarred warrior desperately steers the vehicle through the dense woods. They are being hunted by monstrous creatures mounted on massive, charging boars. Yoshio watches this intense medieval fantasy sequence play out in breathtaking detail. The camera reveals a terrified family huddled inside while a priestess clutches her Bible, praying to the god of fate for salvation. A monster lunges forward, slashing its claws against the side of the wooden cart. The family screams in terror as the relentless assault continues. Another beast surges ahead, and Yoshio realizes they are aiming to cripple the horses. The warrior reacts instantly, unsheathing his blade with lethal precision. He moves like a blur, parrying the creature's strike mid-air. But a second beast seizes the opening, lunging straight for the defenseless horses. Before the monster can draw blood, the tide suddenly shifts. The priestess's holy Bible erupts with a blinding divine radiance. This brilliant flash dazzles the monsters, forcing them into a desperate retreat. With the threat neutralized, the warrior quickly checks on the passengers. They offer grateful smiles, relieved to have escaped certain death. Watching this unfold, Yoshio realizes the game has officially begun and ponders his next move. He clicks on the warrior, triggering a detailed character profile to materialize. This is Gams, a 26-year-old warrior monk, traveling with his sister Kem, the 19-year-old priestess of fate. Yoshio notes they look nothing alike while marveling at the game's high-budget origins. Admiring the god-tier graphics, he decides to skip exploration and examines the rest of the party. The remaining three are a family. Russ, a former store owner, his fierce wife Lee, and their mature daughter Carol. Together with the siblings, these survivors form the core cast of this world. While Yoshio is hooked by the drama, he's still struggling to grasp the actual gameplay. Suddenly, a chime rings out as the characters begin communicating through text dialogue. Gams drops to his knees, consumed by guilt for failing to protect their village from destruction. Russ reassures him of their miraculous escape, while little Carol wonders about the mysterious light she witnessed. Yoshio notices Kem's intense brother complex and identifies the siblings as the primary focus of the story. Gams reprimands his sister for her immature behavior. Carol jumps in to tease the pair, while Yoshio admires the character depth, realizing this game might be a masterpiece. Lila intervenes to stop the girls from questioning the source of the mysterious light. Kem explains that the holy radiance emanated directly from her Bible. Another flash of light appears, informing Yoshio of his true role. He must act as their god, guiding the village to prosperity through a single daily prophecy written in the Bible. The game's interface prompts him to put this power to the test immediately. Yoshio is fascinated by the freedom to type any command he wants, though he assumes the AI will only follow basic logic. After some careful thought, he masterfully crafts his first divine decree. He decides that if the AI can comprehend even a fraction of his intent, this is a legendary game. He hits enter. Suddenly, the Bible begins to glow with a holy light once again. A stunned Kem opens the book and immediately falls to her knees in pure gratitude. Witnessing a miracle, she announces to the group that she has received a direct message from the god of fate. She shows the Bible to the men, causing Russ to weep with emotion while his wife and daughter apologize for being illiterate. Since Gams can only read a few words, he asks his sister to recite the divine message for everyone to hear. She stands before them, ready to deliver the words of the god of fate. Yoshio's message claims he drove the monsters away and promises 1 miracle per day, urging them to live well under his guidance. He commands them to begin clearing the forest and to establish a secure settlement. As his specific instructions are read aloud, Yoshio recoils in shock, nearly falling out of his chair. Layla is overjoyed to have a god watching over them, while Russ is moved by the deity's daily benevolence. Yoshio is stunned that the characters can actually comprehend his written words. He is left speechless, realizing the game's technology is light years ahead of its time. He watches in awe as the NPCs react dynamically to his every command. Despite his wonder, he questions if this is just a complex script or something far more mysterious. Upon receiving his guidance, the group immediately splits up to begin harvesting timber. Rust points out a realistic hurdle. Freshly cut trees can't be used immediately and require time to season. This level of realism catches Yoshio off guard, proving the game's mechanics are incredibly intricate. Rust explains that without proper drying, the wood will warp and become completely useless for construction. The priestess and the others admit they were completely oblivious to these technical details. Rust assumes their god has a divine plan and urges everyone to gather the trees to earn his favor. He quickly retrieves the necessary tools from the wagon to begin the labor. While the men handle the heavy lifting, the girls scavenge the surrounding area for sustenance. Yoshio discovers he can zoom out the camera, revealing a narrow path through the unexplored wilderness. He confirms that the fog of war lifts as the characters push further into the unknown. He questions the flow of time, wondering if the game operates in real time, a feat thought to be impossible. A new prompt appears, revealing that as the god of fate, he can expend faith points to manifest miracles. These points are fueled by the villagers' devotion and are tracked directly on his screen. In the top right corner, his current balance sits at exactly 97 fate points. As the villagers' gratitude and population grow, his power will surge, tied directly to the weight of his prophecies. The message concludes that a thriving village empowers his miracles, prompting Yoshio to inspect his divine abilities. He weighs his options, from summoning helpful visitors like doctors to reuniting the group with lost villagers. Realizing he can literally shape destiny, he also discovers the power to control the weather. However, his points are depleted. To make the right choice, Yoshio decides to listen to the villagers' needs first. He eavesdrops on Lotus and Gams as they fell trees, while the shopkeeper offers praise to the god of fate. He attempts to spark a conversation about the weather and chemistry, but he receives only blunt, one-word replies. Realizing the conversation is a dead end, he turns his attention to the girls. When questioned, Layla explains that they've only secured enough supplies for 2 weeks. The priestess prays for a steady food source, leading Yoshio to consider relying on traveling peddlers. He concludes that self-sufficiency requires a mountain expedition, leaving him curious about what they might find. Yoshio contemplates sending Gams to scout tomorrow, but fears losing his only capable fighter. If he plays purely by the numbers, he could send the less essential Carol to survey the land. Watching her forage, he realizes a single mistake could lead to a massacre. Driven by potential guilt, he scans the Miracles tab again. He finds an option to summon familiars, realizing one could expand his map's range and provide vital intel. The menu features over 50 types, including slimes and unicorns, but a bird is clearly the best choice for scouting. Unfortunately, the costs are staggering, far beyond his current point total. Even basic pets like cats and dogs are out of reach. All he can afford is a tiny chick. While it might provide eggs, it's useless for scouting. Yoshio grumbles in frustration, seemingly trapped with no way to earn points. A sudden chime interrupts his thoughts. revealing a new way to gain fate points, a payment system. The game introduces microtransactions, offering 10 points for every 1,000 yen he spends. Yoshio winces at the blatant greed, shocked to find pay-to-win mechanics in an alpha test. He calculates that 20,000 yen could buy a familiar, potentially securing the villager's future. He raids his drawers, scouring for every cent until he uncovers 10,000 yen in savings. He calculates that liquidating his collection of books and games, along with some rare raffle prizes, could net him a massive windfall. As night falls, he weighs his options while keeping a close eye on the villager's progress. Even though it's only 9 o'clock, the weary group is already hunkering down in the wagon for sleep. Carol bids Gams goodnight, with Kem chiming in to wish him well. Gams remains stationed by the fire, stubbornly refusing to rest despite Luth's constant urging. Gams insists that a monster could strike at any moment, but his father consoles him, pointing to the divine miracles they've witnessed. His father maintains that the god of fate is their ultimate shield, while Luth argues that no beast would dare challenge God's territory. Gams remains unconvinced, prompting Yoshio to offer a silent apology, wishing he actually possessed the godlike strength they credit him with. He sighs, realizing they feel invincible under his gaze, and wonders if he should admit that his power has its limits. Fearing that honesty might kill his point gains from their gratitude, he pushes the thought aside and dives into researching wood manufacturing. He muses over how long it's been since he applied himself to anything, having spent years rotting away in front of movies and videos. Instead of bettering himself, he wasted his life scrolling through Reddit, realizing that time could have been used to save these people. He laments that if he were a more capable person, he'd have the funds and the focus to truly protect them as their god. With a heavy sigh, he wonders why he's letting a mere game stir up such deep-seated personal regrets. Catching a glimpse of his disheveled reflection in the window, a sudden sharp pain flares in his side. He lifts his shirt, exposing a jagged and deep abdominal scar. The wound throbs in the cold weather, acting as a grim trigger for the memory of how he was maimed. It all traces back to a disturbed stalker who was relentlessly harassing his younger sister. Yoshio had stepped in to confront the boy, warning him to back off and leave her alone. When the boy remains silent, Yoshio grabs his collar, demanding he leave his sister alone. The boy mumbles an incoherent response, and before Yoshio can react, he plunges a switchblade deep into Yoshio's stomach. His sister's scream pierces the air. The stalker rips the blade out, a twisted grin plastered across his face. Yoshio's strength fails him as he collapses to the ground. Overwhelmed by terror, Yoshio scrambles to his feet and flees for his life. He leaves a trail of blood behind, abandoning his sister in his desperation. This moment marks the ultimate turning point, the beginning of a life where nothing would ever go right again. Shaking off the traumatic memory, he finds himself back at his cluttered desk, retreating into the digital world as the sun begins to rise. Harsh morning light floods through the window, pulling him back to reality. He spent the entire night researching wood manufacturing for the game, losing track of time until he finally checks the clock. It's barely past dawn, an hour he hasn't seen in years. Turning back to the screen, he notices the villagers are already up and active. They've prepared a stockpile of logs while Kim offers up her morning prayers. Nearby, Layla and her daughter are busy gathering herbs for the village. Realizing the game world moves in real time, he ponders his next prophecy until a sharp hunger pang interrupts his thoughts. He's completely depleted his stash of snacks during his overnight marathon. He heads downstairs to scavenge the fridge, but freezes when he hears voices coming from the kitchen. His sister is inside, casually asking their mother for some soy sauce. He presses himself against the wall, nerves fraying as he realizes it is already breakfast time. His father mentions he'll likely be working overtime, while his sister warns him not to push himself too hard. Yoshio hasn't spoken to his sister since the stalker incident, nor to his father since their explosive fight regarding his unemployment. He envisions himself walking into the kitchen and simply asking for a meal. But he quickly dismisses the thought as pathetic. They are fueling up for a productive day, while he remains a jobless shadow who can't face them. Overwhelmed by shame, he retreats to his room and decides to undergo intense muscle training. This habit was born from the incident, a desperate attempt to purge his weakness through absolute discipline. Akaim pulls his focus back to the village of fate, where Gams catches his eye once again. Gams advises his daughter not to overexert herself, but she insists on continuing her labor. She is eager to contribute. He tells her to call for help if trouble arises, and she gives a cheerful agreement. Watching this, Yoshio reflects that these digital villagers live with more passion and vibrancy than he does. Sinking into a slump, he warns the monitor that they shouldn't rely so heavily on such a flawed god. Suddenly, the Bible glows as a new oracle descends. Kem excitedly gathers the villagers, proclaiming that a prophecy has arrived from the god of fate. Yoshio explains that his power is diminished, limiting him to minor miracles and watchful observation. He commands his followers to unite with others to survive. He offers them his divine blessing, leaving the group in a stunned, reverent silence as they process the prophecy. Yoshio buries his face in his hands, terrified they'll abandon a god who makes excuses. But Kem interrupts his spiral, marveling at the miracle of his continued protection. To his shock, Gams praises him, theorizing that God's weakened state comes from battling demons. He vows they will stop relying on miracles and fortify their own defenses. Yoshio is stunned that they transformed his pessimism into inspiration. Seeing his fate points hit 110, he realizes the quality of his prophecy dictates his rewards. As their daily lives continue, he overhears Kem mentioning how uncomfortable it is to sleep in a wagon. They realize they need a defensive wall against monsters, while Lila laments their desperate lack of salt. Yoshio knows more fate points could ease the villagers' fears. He could erase their worries instantly, but he hesitates to spend them. Instead, he lists his rare raffle prizes for auction, aiming to rake in 30,000 yen. Eyeing his mountain of comics and old games, he realizes they're his ticket to fast cash at a used bookstore. But there's a massive catch. To sell them, he has to leave the house. It's something he hasn't done during the day in over 2 years. While weighing his options, he focuses back on the game, knowing it's game over if the villagers are wiped out. With his back against the wall, Yoshio resolves to step outside. As he dresses, he notices his clothes feel uncomfortably snug. As a child, he envisioned his 30s as a time of peak sophistication and success. Reality is far harsher. Staring at the weary, unkempt man in the mirror, anxiety grips him, and he nearly postpones the trip until tomorrow. Retiring to his monitor, he watches Carol cheerfully gathering sticks in the woods. Suddenly, she trips over a jagged rock. She hits the ground hard, her bundle of sticks scattering everywhere. Yoshio watches, paralyzed and helpless behind the screen. Carol clutches her scraped knee in pain, but she's undaunted. She wipes her tears and begins gathering the wood once more. She bravely continues her march back to the cart. This display of grit catches Yoshio off guard as he scans the rest of the village. He spots Gams and Lodis hauling massive logs. Even the girls are washing clothes in the freezing weather, proving that everything has changed since yesterday. Determined to match their resolve, Yoshio prepares to give his all. He marches toward the door, leaving his mother frozen in shock as she asks where he's going. He promises a swift return before snatching his bike and preparing to depart. Yoshio rockets past his stunned neighbors, ignoring their judgmental stares and toxic whispers. Drowning in guilt and self-loathing, he hears their imaginary mockery, haunting him for his failure to find work. Overcome with shame, he shuts his eyes as the crushing weight of his emotions threatens to break him. But then, the memory of the villager's indomitable spirit flickers in his mind, purging the darkness. He pedals with newfound intensity, racing toward the bookstore. It is time to liquidate his collection, selling off his games and books for cold, hard cash. He scours the shelves for anything useful, fighting off the echoing insults of his neighbors as he pushes forward. Deep in the stacks, he finds various isekai manga, noting how heroes are praised for introducing modern wisdom to primitive worlds. He realizes this strategy could revolutionize his game, but his empty pockets won't even cover a bargain bin manga. On his way back home, a local cake shop catches his eye. Nostalgia hits him hard as he recalls the cherished visits he once shared with his family. The past feels like a distant dream as he remains locked onto his current objective. Stepping inside the shop, the vendor welcomes him with a warm, genuine smile. As he surveys the colorful displays, he is transported back to childhood, picking out treats with his sister. He keeps his gaze lowered, trying to remain inconspicuous. He orders 4 puddings, a small rare indulgence, before making his exit. Returning home, he finds his mother resting in the living room. He hands over the bag, catching her by surprise. Yoshio shyly explains there's enough for everyone before retreating upstairs. Alone in his room, he wrestles with his embarrassment, convinced that a failure like him hasn't earned the right to feel good. Yoshio gazes at the sky in despair, questioning his life choices after selling off his belongings. The sale nets him 20,000 yen, boosting his fate points to a total of 310. He observes the villagers sharing a meal by the fire, contemplating which miracle to unleash next. He recently discovered a system feature that allows him to revisit past events. While reviewing their history seems useful, he hesitates, feeling like a voyeur. Driven by a desire to grant their wishes, he pushes past his guilt and activates the ability. He eavesdrops on a conversation the girls had during his absence. While washing clothes, Layla expresses a desire for a bath but fears a monster attack while she's vulnerable. Layla jokes that she wouldn't mind the villagers seeing her, confident that Gams wouldn't even bat an eye. However, when Carol agrees, Kim immediately snaps back in disagreement. She insists her stoic brother is still a man, revealing a massive brother complex. Yoshio realizes Kim's attachment is far deeper than he ever imagined. The mood shifts instantly when Layla brings up a devastating monster attack from their past. She recalls a massive swarm that obliterated their home, a once great village protected by stone walls. Despite having numerous hunters and strong defenses, the monsters overran them, leaving countless dead in their wake. Intrigued, Yoshio digs through the logs, discovering that the village once housed hundreds of people. A brutal raid crushed their spirits. After a desperate struggle and heavy losses, the survivors fled on horse-drawn wagons, barely escaping with their lives. They retreated into the forest, but a damaged wagon made their journey a living nightmare. Now, Yoshio finally understands the weight of this world. He realizes the importance of reuniting the scattered survivors and vows to bring them together. Suddenly, his mother's voice breaks his immersion, calling him for dinner. He enters the kitchen, shocked to find his cold, emotionless father already sitting at the table. Ever since his father became distant, their interactions have dwindled to just a few times a month. They only exchange hollow, uninterested words, a direct result of a massive argument that shattered their relationship. His father isn't just polite, he's completely indifferent. Yoshio breaks the silence, asking if his sister Saki is working late. His mother agrees. Unlike the struggling Yoshio, Saki is thriving, having landed her dream job and finding fulfillment despite the grueling overtime. His mother continues her cheerful chatter, mentioning she received handmade pickles from their neighbor, Okiku. She offers him a taste while reminiscing about how they first met. Okiku is an elderly landlady who resides in a massive traditional estate nearby. Yoshio recalls his childhood days spent playing there, remembering how Okiku would always treat them to sweets. While their own home isn't as grand as Okiku's, it's still a respectable house complete with a private garden. Yoshio is only able to maintain his neat lifestyle because his father earns a substantial living. After finishing his meal, Yoshio prepares to retreat. As he clears his plates, his mother suggests he take a pudding, wondering if his father wants one as well. She reveals that Saki baked them herself. Hearing this, his father's eyes widen, and Yoshio watches him with bated breath until he finally accepts the treat. Back in his room, Yoshio finishes the snack and dives back into the game. He notices everyone has retreated to the wagon except for Gams, the lone warrior standing guard by the fire. As Gams tends to the flames, Yoshio admires his reliability, finding that the warrior's stoic presence mirrors his own father. Gams is the village's only true line of defense. Russ and his family are helpless in a fight, and while Kim possesses healing magic, she isn't built for the front lines. Turning from the screen, Yoshio admits that both he and the villagers are over-reliant on Gams, wishing he could provide more reinforcements. He has the power to summon new allies using fate points, but a guaranteed hero is expensive. There's a cheaper, randomized option, but it's a massive gamble. If his luck fails, he could accidentally summon a criminal who would tear the village apart. He knows that falling into the trap of pay-to-win mechanics is a dangerous addiction. Furthermore, Yoshio desperately wants a familiar, feeling an empty void in his party. He scratches his head, frustrated that a mere game is causing him this much anxiety. Exhausted from his first trip outside in years, he decides to sleep on it, just as Gams prepares to turn in for the night, and Yoshio wishes his digital subjects a peaceful evening. A piercing alarm suddenly blares from the speakers. Panic sets in as a massive attack warning flashes across the screen. Gams' voice rings out with commanding authority, ordering the villagers to wake up and prepare for the incoming assault. From the horse wagon, the group watches through the flapping cloth as he faces the dark woods. With his back turned, he readies his arsenal, unsheathing his longsword while declaring he senses an incoming threat. He commands Kim to guard the others and hold the line at the wagon at all costs. A terrified Ran tells Carol to stay inside for safety as Gams prepares to face the danger alone. Kim insists on joining the fray, but her brother shuts her down, reminding her that her healing magic is their last line of defense. Fighting back tears, she reluctantly agrees to stay behind. Meanwhile, Yoshio shouts at his monitor in a panic, unable to spot the monsters lurking in the pitch-black darkness. Suddenly, two shadowy figures erupt from the bushes near the fire, growling with primal ferocity. From his divine perspective, the god of fate watches as the game identifies these beasts as black dogs. These aren't ordinary strays. They are savage, flesh-eating predators possessing monstrous strength and lethal venomous fangs. Yoshio panics, realizing that even a warrior as formidable as Gams is hopelessly outnumbered. Gams locks eyes with the approaching predators, crossing his blades as they snarl and prepare to strike. Yoshio prays for Gams' survival before remembering his divine role, frantically searching for a miracle to intervene. All the while, Gams maintains a cold stare-down with the beasts. The black dogs lunge in unison, attempting a pincer attack from both sides. With godlike precision, the veteran warrior unleashes a dual sword strike. He cleaves through both monsters simultaneously with a single fluid motion. The beasts collapse and whimper as their lives fade, but Gams remains vigilant, delivering a final, ruthless blow to ensure they stay down. Yoshio erupts in cheers, mesmerized by the warrior's absolute dominance on screen. Kim rushes to her brother's side, but her relief turns to horror when he weakly admits he's reached his limit. Without another word, the mighty warrior collapses, leaving her completely stunned. Witnessing the scene, Kem wails for her brother as he lies motionless, drenched in a cold sweat. Yoshio grips the screen with both hands, his face contorted in shock as he fears for Gam's fate. Despite the victory, the cost is high. Kem kneels, cradling her unconscious brother's head in her lap. As Russ rushes to help, the warrior's face contorts in agony, leaving the god of fate to watch helplessly. Kem clutches Gam's limp body, screaming for him to wake up as his warmth begins to fade. Panicked, Yoshio seizes the monitor, shouting at the screen in a desperate attempt to understand Gam's condition. Russ approaches the frantic priestess, urging her to remain calm. He checks Gam's pulse, finding it faint while his body grows cold and his skin turns a sickly pale. Upon closer inspection, he discovers a deep, jagged wound on the warrior's arm. Alarmed by the wound's dark discoloration, Russ realizes the black dog's bite was laced with lethal venom. He urgently asks Kem if she possesses any antidote spells to counteract the poison. Yoshio clings to a shred of hope, praying the priestess's divine magic can save Gam's life. But that hope shatters when she tearfully admits she hasn't mastered detoxification magic yet. She turns to Russ in a panic, but the former shopkeeper can only look down in shame. He reveals the grim reality: they don't have a single antidote potion left in their supplies. Young Carol clings to her mother's skirt, watching the nightmare unfold in total terror. Kem is consumed by a wave of grief and paralyzing fear. She pulls her brother close, sobbing and begging him not to leave her behind. Desperate, she turns her tear-filled eyes toward the heavens. She pleads with God to spare his life, offering anything in exchange for her brother's survival. The god of fate, visibly shaken, contemplates his next move. He realizes Gam's death would end everything. Witnessing the villagers' distress, he wonders if he has the power to act. He resolves to intervene, summoning his divine authority. Pushing his fear aside, he steps forward boldly, declaring that only a miracle can salvage this. He recalls the game's mechanics, searching for a way to reverse this tragedy. He opens the miracles menu and scans the options, instantly dismissing useless summons like peddlers or hunters. He finally finds the traveling doctor option. Despite the staggering 300-point cost, he gambles everything and selects it. He knows even this doesn't guarantee a result, yet he's forced to bet his last hope on it. His sudden late-night outburst startles his mother downstairs. She calls out to him, but Yoshio is too engrossed to notice. He worries if a doctor appearing now is too convenient, but a glance at the clock shows it's already past midnight. He types the final command and waits for the game's outcome. Ken desperately grips her brother, begging for a response, when a mysterious voice echoes from behind her. A hooded figure emerges from the dark woods, stepping into the firelight. A leather bag hangs at the stranger's side, and his face is set with grim determination. Still clutching her brother, Kim demands to know his identity. An anxious Russ grabs a spare blade, leveling it at the stranger as the family watches in terror. The man remains calm, introducing himself as a traveling doctor. While Russ stays wary and the girls exchange doubtful looks, Yoshio realizes their suspicion is justified. With a confident smirk, Yoshio hits the enter key. Suddenly, the holy book springs wide open. It radiates a blinding light, the pages flipping violently until they land on the latest prophecy from the god of fate. Reading the glowing words, the stunned priestess cannot hold back her tears. She lifts her head to the heavens, shouting her profound thanks to the deity. She hugs her brother tightly as the doctor announces he has reached the correct destination. He requests permission to examine Gams, and the stunned shopkeeper reluctantly agrees. The doctor steps forward, looming over Gams and his sister to begin his work. They remain locked in a desperate embrace. With downcast eyes, Ken pleads with the doctor to save his life. Beside them, Carol offers a fervent prayer for his survival. Examining the necrotic wound left by the black dog, the doctor instantly diagnoses the affliction. He retrieves a vial from his bag, pouring the medicine into Gam's mouth before dousing the open sore. The warrior's face contorts in pure agony as the remedy takes hold. However, the pain soon subsides, and a healthy color begins to flush back into his cheeks. Seeing the recovery, the villagers erupt into cheers at the miracle. Yoshio exhales in relief, sinking into his chair and celebrating the doctor's timely arrival. He notes that he must thank the long-haired physician, despite being unsure of their true identity. While Kim comforts her brother, Russ seizes the Bible and begins reading its holy message aloud. The god of fate claims he guided the doctor here, declaring that Gam's time has not yet come. He promises to watch over the brave warrior, warning that while trials will continue, he remains their guardian. Yoshio tries to maintain a grand divine tone, though he secretly questions his own delivery. The young man sighs in relief as Russ interprets the message exactly as intended. Addressing the group, he commends their bravery but admits he can only watch from this point forward. By the next morning, Layla and Carol venture into the forest to gather berries. The young girl asks if the fruit will help Gams recover, and her mother gives a cheerful, reassuring nod. Meanwhile, a nervous Russ takes over guard duty, gripping his sword tight and scanning the woods, vowing to protect his people. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes sends him stumbling back in terror, only for a harmless white rabbit to hop into view. Back at the camp, Kim kneels beside her slumbering brother. The doctor rhythmically grinds herbs with his mortar and pestle. Shaking off her lingering doubt, the priestess asks why he ventured into such a dangerous territory. He explains his lineage of legendary healers and how this forbidden forest is a goldmine for rare herbs, despite the monsters. He recounts witnessing a mysterious beam of light the previous night, a celestial omen that compelled him to investigate. Kem immediately declares that this was nothing short of divine guidance. While he usually trusts nature over gods, the doctor admits that last night felt like true divine intervention. Yoshio realizes the doctor is agnostic, acknowledging a higher power while struggling to suppress a yawn. When asked if he's leaving, the physician refuses to abandon his patient while they remain in critical condition. He asks for permission to remain with the group, ensuring his patient makes a full recovery. Kem's face lights up as she welcomes him, though she warns him they currently have no roof over their heads. Yoshio is relieved to have a doctor on board, but he worries the cramped wagon will force someone to sleep in the dirt. Survival is temporary. Yoshio knows another pack of black dogs could end their journey at any moment. Even though Gams was rescued, he remains completely immobilized for the foreseeable future. To make matters worse, Rusei lacks the raw strength to fill the void left by their fallen warrior. Driven by desperation, Yoshio plots how to spend his fate points to secure a proper fortress for the group. The doctor offers a sudden solution, a nearby abandoned mine that provides perfect shelter and salvaged tools. Yoshio is stunned by this stroke of luck, realizing his people finally have a safe place to rest their heads. Eager for safety, Rusei begs the doctor to lead the way as the group prepares to move out. The cave is a mere 5 minutes away, close enough for them to retrieve their wood later. With a new destination in sight, the horse-drawn wagon begins its journey toward hope. The wagon navigates narrow, treacherous roads along the cliffside. Finally, they arrive at a tunnel entrance sealed by heavy boards and dual doors. The doctor explains the massive door was for hauling goods, while the smaller one leads deep into the tunnels. Once a bustling mine, the site was converted into a hidden sanctuary after richer ore was found nearby. The doctor and Russ heave open the massive doors, allowing the villagers to guide their wagon into the cavern. Inside, the doctor taps a specialized lantern mounted on the wall. The ore inside ignites with a brilliant glow, triggering a chain reaction that illuminates every lamp in the cave. The light reveals a massive hall furnished with tables, chairs, and circular doors carved directly into the stone. The villagers stand speechless, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the hidden base. Even Yoshio finds himself thoroughly impressed by the sight. Though dusty and weathered, it's a massive upgrade from the wagon, fueling Russ's excitement as he explores. The doctor notes that these rooms were originally carved out by miners as private living quarters. Caught up in the awe of their new home, the group is too distracted to pay him much attention. Inside the wagon, Kim holds her brother's hand, whispering that they're safe and praying for his recovery. Meanwhile, Layla discovers a freshwater spring, a stone furnace, and cooking tools, a find that leaves her absolutely thrilled. Without wasting a second, she rolls up her sleeves, determined to scrub the entire place clean. Yoshio expresses his profound gratitude to the doctor for leading them to such a perfect sanctuary. As time passes, the doctor tends to Gams in one of the private rooms while the warrior heals. In the main hall, Layla hushes the group to avoid disturbing Gams, urging them to tidy up so he'll be amazed when he wakes. With a renewed sense of purpose, the villagers set to work organizing their new underground home. They begin reorganizing the items and scrubbing the floors. They discard the junk outside while setting aside repairable treasures in the corner. As Carol polishes the floor of a room, she gazes at the bed with a joyful smile. With 4 rooms now available, she dreams of sharing one with Gams, eager to sleep by his side. Kem overhears the remark and shoots Carol a sharp, piercing glare from the doorway. She mutters to herself that her big brother would obviously choose her instead. Meanwhile, Yoshio thinks Carol is being childish, but feels Gams spoils her far too much. She believes he needs to set firm boundaries with Carol, regardless of her age, if it's something he truly doesn't want. Nearby, Layla eavesdrops on Kem before slipping away unnoticed. Yoshio worries about their bond, but notes they're finally starting to connect as fellow villagers. He realizes that transforming this cave into a livable home solves their housing crisis, allowing him to focus on the future. The dream of building a real village fills him with a sense of pride. He rises from his chair and stretches, realizing it's already noon. With strained eyes and a growling stomach, he heads out to find a meal. Just as he steps out, the opposite door swings open, bringing him face to face with his little sister, Saki. She immediately calls out his disheveled appearance, causing Yoshio to freeze in his tracks. He can only manage to stammer her name aloud. Saki brushes her hair back, meeting his gaze with an icy, judgmental stare. Yoshio awkwardly asks if she's currently taking a break. But his question is met with nothing but cold, heavy silence. Saki bluntly orders Yoshio to move so she can head down for lunch. He nervously mentions that he's heading to the first floor as well. Hearing this, Saki plants her hands on her hips and strictly forbids him from using the bathroom downstairs. Yoshio turns to protest, but the sudden memory of the stalker incident floods his mind with overwhelming shame. He hangs his head in defeat and turns away, promising to stay far away from the first-floor bathroom. As they descend the stairs, a frustrated Saki demands he show some backbone and argue back for once. She calls him weak and questions his intelligence. Back in his room, Yoshio reflects on how Saki's personality has soured ever since the trauma of the stalker incident. Now, every encounter is suffocatingly tense, a far cry from the days when they were inseparable friends. Everything has shifted, leaving him to wonder if their sibling bond would still be intact if that dark event had never occurred. A searing pain shoots through his scar as the memory of the stalker's confrontation resurfaces. He forces himself to snap out of it, knowing that wallowing in regret won't change the past. Shifting his focus to the villagers, he checks the cave's common room, where the cleaning efforts are nearly complete. Layla admires the progress while Rue asks about Ken's whereabouts, only to learn he is currently checking on Gams. Little Carol begs to join them, but her father insists they give the recovering warrior some space for now. He suggests they explore the rest of the cavern instead, and she happily agrees to the adventure. She's already brimming with excitement, planning to show Gams the sights once he recovers. Meanwhile, the doctor meticulously records his notes while Gams remains unconscious in a nearby bed. Kim enters the room, offering to take over the watch so the doctor can finally get some rest. He grants her request, noting that the lethal effects of the poison have finally stabilized. He leaves her with a final instruction. Alert him immediately if anything unusual happens. Sitting by Gams's side, Kim takes his hand and softly assures him that she's right there. Yoshio observes that Gam's health is steadily improving, making him feel it's safe to look away for a moment. Suddenly, a mysterious pop-up window catches his eye, reading "Dream Manifesting from the Warrior," instantly sparking his curiosity. Eager to see what it means, he clicks the notification. In an instant, the screen undergoes a radical transformation. As the vision clears, Yoshio finds himself witnessing a memory of a much younger Gams. A clerk hands Gams a purse of gold, praising the rookie for completing his very first mission. Yoshio realizes he is watching Gams' past unfold before his eyes. The young warrior politely offers his thanks to the clerk. Gams then turns down an invitation from other adventurers to go out for drinks. He explains that he can't go because his little sister is waiting for him at home. Yoshio immediately realizes that he's talking about Kim. It is a bittersweet reflection of a simpler, more innocent time in the warrior's life. The scene shifts as the warrior arrives home and steps inside. He finds his father slumped at the table. The man is surrounded by a sea of empty bottles, clearly deep in his cups. Disgusted, Gams calls him out, prompting his father to hurl a bottle at him in a drunken rage. Unfazed, Gams tosses a purse onto the table, payment for his father watching Kim while he was away. The old man greedily peeks inside, already plotting how to buy more liquor. But the mood shifts instantly when Gams asks where his sister is. His father falls silent as Gams rushes down the staircase. Gams is absolutely devastated to find his sister dressed in nothing but tattered rags. She lies starving on the cold floor, and as Gams gathers her into his arms, Yoshio is horrified by the scene. Trembling with fury, Gams begs for her forgiveness for not taking her away from this hell sooner. His father tries to bar the exit, pathetically claiming he was just careless and promising to change. Unmoved and outraged, Gams commands the man to step aside or face the consequences. He delivers a lethal glare that forces the man to instantly back down. He treks through the freezing, snowy night with his sister clinging to his back. When she asks where they are headed, Gams simply replies, "Anywhere but that hellhole." Kim trembles, fearing their father's wrath if they don't return home soon. Gams firmly declares they'll never see that man again, so she never has to be afraid. Heartbroken, she confesses she thought her parents hated her for being a difficult child. Gams immediately snaps back, insisting that their parents were the ones in the wrong. He reveals the horrific truth. Their father planned to sell her into slavery, calling her worthless. The weight of the awful conditions they endured finally becomes clear. Gams stops, sets his sister down, and tells her to erase those monsters from her memory forever. He offers her a new life, promising to stay by her side for as long as she wants. She cheerfully agrees, stating she'll be happy as long as her big brother is with her. Embracing her tightly, Gams vows they will find true happiness together. She nods in agreement, finally feeling safe. The vision fades, and Yoshi finally understands the depth of Kim's bond with her brother. It is clear why she relies so heavily on such a fiercely dependable sibling. Back in reality, Kim tightly grips Gams's hand. The warrior finally stirs, apologizing for making her worry so much. Overwhelmed with emotion, she can no longer hide her tears. She pulls him into a tight embrace, relieved that he's finally safe. The rest of the group quickly notices that Gams has regained consciousness. They shower the doctor with praise while Layla and Carol celebrate the good news. Relieved that he's back, Yoshio leans back to catch his breath. He notes that the entire village is overjoyed, as Gams is truly one of a kind. Gams is a dependable and charismatic figure, beloved for both his looks and his power. He stands in stark contrast to the young man who laughs nervously while describing him. The young man explains how Gams would risk everything just to protect his sister. He is certain that their bond is unbreakable. His uneasy laughter continues until he suddenly realizes that tears are streaming down his face. He frantically wipes them away. He questions why he remains the same despite his crushing regret over the past. Overwhelmed by emotion, he slumps over his desk, desperately wishing he could change as the tears continue to fall. Meanwhile, Yoshio's father and sister head out for their morning commute. Saki even takes a moment to compliment the tie he once gifted him. Yoshio watches them depart from his window with a heavy heart until a sudden notification from his computer snaps him back to reality. On the screen, he spots Layla busy cooking inside the cave. She instructs Carol to set the table while she finishes the meal before Gams and the doctor return from patrol. It's been several days since the villagers first made this cave their new home. Now fully equipped for daily life, the village thrives thanks to everyone's dedicated contributions. Their quality of life has skyrocketed as a direct result of this seamless teamwork. While Russ repairs furniture and Ken constructs new buildings, Yoshio marvels at how this secure, furnished cave dwarfs their old camp, proving every hardship was worth the miracle. Monitoring the forest patrol, Yoshio realizes that summoning the doctor was his greatest masterstroke yet. Deep in a clearing, Gams stands his ground as a ferocious boar charges directly at him. He courageously intercepts the beast, bracing against the impact with his crossblades. He holds his stance against the creature's raw power while the doctor draws his longbow. The doctor takes lethal aim at the beast's head. He releases a single arrow that whistles through the air with perfect precision. The shaft buries itself deep in the boar's eye and the doctor emerges from the brush. The physician sternly warns Gams not to overexert himself while his wounds are still healing. Gams expresses his gratitude to Mouse, the traveling doctor Yoshio summoned through a miracle. Mouse excels not only in medicine and healing, but also in archery, perfectly balancing Gams' brutal close combat style. Furthermore, the doctor wields plant manipulation magic, allowing him to harvest massive amounts of timber in a mere instant. He also guides the team through the wilderness with almost supernatural navigation skills. Yoshio watches on, desperately wishing Mouse would stay with the village permanently. For now, he is merely a guest, and his mysterious background remains a total enigma. The conditions for his permanent recruitment remain unclear, frustrating Yoshio, especially since he spent 30,000 yen worth of points to bring him here. Gams and the doctor secure the boar and haul the massive kill back to the cave, where Kem and Carol welcome them. Russ is stunned by the size of the prize, and Carol cheers as her mother announces a massive meat feast for dinner. She points out that they're running dangerously low on salt and seasoning, essentials for preserving and flavoring their meat. Yoshio agrees that this is a critical issue that needs immediate attention. He notes that despite the abundance of fish and game near the cave, the village needs more than just raw resources to thrive. To secure a steady food supply, the villagers unite to break ground on a massive new farm. Realizing they need seeds and trade goods, the leader hopes a peddler from Miracle might find their way to the village. However, Yoshio is already focused on a much more ambitious plan. He is determined to summon a golem to serve as the ultimate helper, no matter the price. A golem is a towering stone construct programmed to follow his every command. This tireless titan can labor all day and night without ever succumbing to exhaustion. Most importantly, Yoshio can pilot the creature with a controller, finally allowing him to take a direct, hands-on role in the village's development. There is a major hurdle. Summoning the golem requires 700 fate points, which translates to 7,000 yen in real-world currency. Having already spent 300 points on mass, his reserves are low, though the villager's growing faith has slowly pushed his balance back to 160. At a rate of 10 points per day, he realizes he'll have to wait nearly 2 months to afford the golem, a realization that leaves him frustrated. He can't simply buy more points either, as his personal savings have already been completely drained by his devotion to the village. He looks up from the screen to see the villagers enjoying a peaceful dinner together. He lets out a heavy sigh and stands up from his desk. He makes his way downstairs to brew a fresh pot of coffee. While waiting for his drink, his mind drifts back to the screen. He recalls Kim and Gams working on a mysterious project a few days ago and grows curious about their progress. Ken cheerfully announces that the work is nearly finished, asking if the craftsmanship meets his high standards. A crude shrine dedicated to the god of fate stands before them, its figure roughly carved from a massive tree trunk. Gams gently pats Kem's head, reassuring her that her heart matters most and that their deity surely feels their pure intent. Misu approaches, questioning if this humble altar and statue truly represent their god. The priest clarifies the situation, apologizing for the rough craftsmanship of the monument they built to honor him. Yoshio watches the scene, deeply moved by the villagers' unwavering devotion. He notices the statue's primitive shape makes its gender a mystery. Though he assumed the god was male, he now questions the deity's true form. Gam steps forward and places 3 fruits upon the altar as a sacred offering. The villagers bow their heads and begin to pray in unison. The fruits suddenly glow and vanish, startling Yoshio before he realizes that disappearing offerings are perfectly natural in a world where God truly exists. He then notices his fate points increase by 1, immediately linking the gain to the ritual. A system message appears, explaining that points are earned through gratitude and gifts, with rarer items yielding greater rewards. The prompt urges him to support the villagers, sounding almost like an enthusiastic game show host. Taking this in, he considers asking the villagers to offer up their unwanted items to boost his points. Though valuable items would grant more power, he refuses to burden them and decides against pushing his luck. Suddenly, Kem's Bible erupts with light, signaling a brand new prophecy. Yoshio thanks the villagers for their sincerity as they gather round, while Misu watches skeptically from a distance as the god of fate speaks. The young man tells the villagers not to overexert themselves, explaining that even their unneeded goods can be transformed into miracles. He pauses for a moment, wondering if his request sounded a bit too much like begging. But the villagers are moved by his words, sincerely praising him for his humility and kindness. Yoshio can only marvel at their incredible, pure-hearted innocence. He notes they'd be easy targets for cults in modern Japan, realizing he's currently being played as well. The next day, Roos enlists Gams to assist him. Yoshio watches intently as they drag a massive log into the cave. They place it upon the altar, offer a prayer, and watch it vanish into thin air. Stunned by the scale of the offering, he wonders if they'll keep this up daily, or if worship truly brings them joy. He suddenly realizes the afternoon is already slipping away. He stretches his weary limbs just as his mother announces a package has arrived. Sensing the irritation in her voice, he knows he needs to move. He quickly makes his way downstairs to investigate. He accepts the delivery, but the sight of it leaves him absolutely paralyzed. The return address is impossible. It's sent directly from the Village of Fate. He refuses to believe a gift could actually cross over from the digital world. He claims it's just a contest prize, secretly assuming it's just promotional material from the developer. He sighs, feeling ridiculous for his dramatic reaction. But then his mother pries open the box. Yoshio's eyes widen in sheer disbelief at the sight before him. Resting inside are 3 bizarre fruits from the game, leaving his mother completely baffled. She asks if he wants to try this exotic fruit for dessert, and he hesitantly agrees. He notices one resembles an apple but carries a sharp citrus scent, exactly like the ones the villagers love. With a trembling hand, he finally takes a bite. He is instantly overwhelmed by an explosion of incredible flavor. He concludes the developers must have cleverly shipped a rare, exotic fruit from overseas. Thrilled with the delicious gift, he has absolutely no complaints. The next morning, he formally thanks the villagers for their generous offering. He advises them not to overwork themselves or let precious food go to waste. He suggests they send non-food items if they're struggling, urging them to prioritize their own survival over daily tributes. He's convinced that once he earns enough points for a miracle, he'll truly be able to save them all. While watching Ken carefully maintain the sacred statue, Yoshio is violently snapped back to reality by his mother's enraged screaming. When he rushes downstairs, she demands to know what he plans to do with that. He's paralyzed with shock to find the exact log from the Village of Fate sitting in his own home. Terrified, he concludes that this elaborate prank has gone way too far. He begins the back-breaking task of dragging the heavy timber to the backyard. He remembers his mother's sharp command to use his unnaturally strong physique to move it. Worn out, he recalls Luz and Gam's struggle when he ordered the harvest, but he desperately tries to dismiss the impossible connection. He simply cannot wrap his head around such an impossible delivery. Driven by frustration, he decides to confront the game company directly. He checks the shipping stamp for a phone number, but finds the space suspiciously empty. He discovers the package apparently originated from a remote part of Hokkaido. Searching the address leads to a dead end, with satellite maps showing only a tiny nondescript check. He highly doubts such a small-time operation could produce a game this revolutionary. Elsewhere, Yoshio grumbles over the company's suffocating secrecy. He's frustrated that he can't travel to Hokkaido to investigate his suspicions, leaving him stuck with a mysterious log. The next morning, a brand new package arrives at his doorstep. This time, the delivery is a heavy-duty cooler. As he pries it open, his jaw drops. Inside, he finds slabs of fresh meat, likely harvested from a ferocious wild boar. He recalls Gams and the others hunting a massive beast in the game world just yesterday. They had offered him a share of the kill right at the altar. Suddenly, his mother enters the kitchen, catching him fumbling to explain the mountain of meat. She's visibly nervous, fearing her son is wasting his money on something illegal. Thinking fast, he concocts a story about an online village revitalization project that accepted his proposal. He claims he's been consulting with villagers who send him local delicacies as a token of gratitude. Relieved and happy, his mother swallows the lie hook, line, and sinker. Meanwhile, Yoshio privately admits that his cover story isn't entirely far from the truth. He hands her the wild boar, suggesting she prepare a feast while she ponders how to cook it. While she looks up recipes, Yoshio secretly prays the meat is safe and definitely not from a monster. From that point on, a steady stream of daily deliveries arrives from the Village of Fate. He receives exotic fruits, more monster meat, and even stranger items, including a glowing crystal that emits light, which he assumes functions like a magical battery. He even continues to receive those mysterious logs on occasion. He has 3 so far and wonders if he can find a buyer for them. He hauls one into his garden, and looking at these supernatural gifts, he realizes that developing the village yields incredible real-world value, granting the player high-tier items as divine rewards. He speculates the game was built by the elite, and he was chosen as a tester by sheer luck. One evening, he dines with his parents, serving the monster meat he received. His father eats in silence, appearing visibly uneasy. His mother asks for more fruit, claiming she feels far healthier since eating the village produce. Yoshio agrees, promising to request more from his villagers. She mentions that Saki enjoyed the meat as well. His father suddenly chimes in, praising the meat's exquisite taste and natural texture. Yoshio is stunned. It has been ages since his father spoke this much. It's clear the man is genuinely impressed by the quality. Later in the garden, Yoshio attempts woodworking, hoping to master a craft to teach the villagers. He finds the physical labor grueling and fears he's failing until his father approaches. His father asks what he is trying to build. Yoshio explains he doesn't want to waste the timber and asks to borrow his father's professional tools. He continues to struggle, the blade jamming repeatedly in the thick wood. His father tells him to step aside and takes command of the saw. Yoshio watches in awe as his father slices through the timber with effortless precision. Desperate to finish, he struggles to handle the saw correctly. Yoshio realizes he's just trying to keep the noise down for the neighbors and hands the tool back. Following this, his father begins mentoring him with expert advice. By the weekend, they've transformed the logs into planks to repair the garden fence. Planning to teach the villagers his culinary secrets, he convinces his mother to share her recipes. He masters the kitchen and begins sharing daily lunches with the village folk. One night, he's busy in the kitchen when Sokka finally returns from work. Gans finds genuine joy in their conversations and warmly welcomes her home. He credits the Village of Fate for making this peaceful life a reality. Yet, he wonders if he's the one helping them, or if they're the ones saving him. His primary concern remains the village's fragile defenses. He heads out to inspect the perimeter surrounding the cave entrance. That's when Kim asks the burning question. Could monsters simply leap over the wall? He reassures her that he and Mouse can neutralize any beast that breaches the gap. However, he grimly admits the real danger is being overwhelmed by a massive horde. Yoshio observes that the villagers finally seem confident in their fortifications. But lately, the villagers have started acting very strange. At a glance, their lives appear peaceful and steady, almost free of concern. But it's a facade. They are faking their calmness while hiding a deep restlessness. Carol notices the shift as well, as their daily conversations grow stiff and hollow. They all sigh collectively while glancing at the wooden calendar. As the month's end approaches, Yoshio senses a looming threat. The villagers gather around the table, their tension palpable. Carol notices their distress and asks why everyone looks so miserable. After exchanging nervous glances, Roos and Isla try to soothe her with a lie. She points out their rigid fear of the calendar, forcing her father to realize the secret is out. He gently pats her head and takes a seat beside her. He recounts how, in the old village, children were always forced inside on the month's final day. She recalls the entire village locking down, with the adults consumed by terror and irritation. Russ explains the lockdown was meant to protect the children before asking her about the world calendar. She explains that 7 gods, earth, moon, nature, water, fire, light, and thunder, rule each month, while Yoshio listens intently. Carol questions why only 7 gods hold dominion when there are 12 months in a year. Russ clarifies that these 7 deities originally ruled for just 1 week each. They govern the weekdays as the world's primary deities, overseeing lesser beings like the god of fate. Yoshio begins to understand his role as he learns the old system collapsed after a massive divine war. This conflict caused chaotic weather shifts that took an entire year to stabilize. When the dust settled, the 7 victorious gods claimed both their specific days and extended periods of rule. The defeated deities were branded as evil and cast into the depths of the earth. They continue to grow stronger in the darkness, attempting to resurface monthly during the evil god's temptation. This event empowers monsters and fuels cruelty, making it clear why the villagers are terrified. Noticing their calendar matches his own world, he calculates that only 10 days remain until the event. Given his current fate points, Yoshio realizes he lacks the power to shield the villagers. As the clock strikes 11 p.m., the atmosphere grows heavy. He spots Russ sitting alone at the table, a rare and troubling sight. Russ's wife approaches, asking what has been weighing on his mind. She notes his recent sleeplessness and clear exhaustion. Clutching his head in despair, he admits he cannot escape the evil god's temptation. They barely escaped the last encounter, and now another monster attack looms. He is paralyzed by the fear of losing his family this time around. He trembles as he speaks, leaving Yoshio desperate to know what happened in the past. Meanwhile, Carol wakes up in her bed on a bright, deceptively calm morning. She immediately wonders where her parents could be. Checking the mirror, she admires her reflection, satisfied that she looks as cute as ever. Heading downstairs, she finds her parents in the kitchen and offers a cheerful greeting. They respond warmly as her mother reminds her to go wash her face. The girl skips outside to the well, finding the freezing water incredibly refreshing. Realizing she forgot to towel, she fixes her hair while praising herself for being such a good girl. Kem approaches with the bucket, asking if she's only just woken up. Carol asks about Gams, and Kem reveals he is already busy guarding the village gates. Carol dismisses his absence with a yawn, much to the priestess's irritation. She bolts away, slamming her door shut while Kim's shouts echo behind her. Back at the table, Carol feigns ignorance as her mother inquires about her conversation with Kim. Dismissing Ken's outburst entirely, Carol focuses on devouring her breakfast. Once finished, she makes a beeline for the exit. When her mother questions her destination, she enthusiastically announces she's off to see Gams. She charges out the door, ignoring her mother's stern warnings to stay inside. The energetic girl sprints through the village as locals greet her, marveling at her endless spirit. One vendor tosses her fruit while another asks how her parents are faring. Suddenly, she halts before the towering curtain wall. Carol gazes up at this massive structure, awestruck by its sheer imposing scale. She spots Gams and a group of battle-worn hunters gathering by the gate, fully armed and exhausted. She rushes toward the startled Gams and pulls him into a tight embrace. He warns her that venturing outside is forbidden today, citing a very specific reason. He points out the eerie silence of the streets, noting she's the only child out today. Observing the weary hunters, she asks Gams if they were the ones who built the massive wall. Gams explains that a catastrophic war ravaged this land years ago, and this town was once a vital fortress. Following the conflict, refugees occupied the abandoned stronghold, eventually transforming it into a thriving town. Struggling to grasp the history, Carol asks if these walls truly offer absolute protection from every enemy. Their conversation is cut short by Lila, who arrives panting, quickly snatching up her runaway daughter. As she's carried away, a fellow warrior approaches Gams, asking if he's actually acquainted with them. He explains they are his neighbors, kind souls who aided him and his sister during their time as wanderers. The soldier notes their lack of fear, but Gam reminds him the town's walls have stood unshaken since their foundation. Layla apologizes for Carol's interruption, promising to discipline her. But Gam suggests showing the girl some mercy. Carol waves goodbye, shouting that she will see him again very soon. Gam returns the gesture, watching until she finally vanishes from sight. Lowering his hand, Gam darkly wonders if a later even exists for them anymore. Observing the bustling village, Carol asks her mother if a festival is starting while Lila continues her knitting. Peering out the window, Lila sighs, wishing it truly were a time for celebration. She perks up and suggests a grand feast once her husband returns, drawing a cheer from Carol as the parents share a knowing smile. Completely unaware of the looming danger, Carol continues to play while the villagers outside scramble in a frenzy. Gazing outside, Ruth informs his wife that the wagon is already packed with every essential they might need. He prepares for the worst, desperately hoping their defensive efforts prove to be unnecessary. Clasping his hands, he prays for safety, yearning to survive the night and greet the morning sun once more. As night falls, the warriors unleash a lethal barrage of arrows upon the encroaching monster horde. The volley thins their ranks, yet the defenders are horrified to see over 20 monsters charging in a unified front. They've never faced such overwhelming numbers, and it's clear different species have formed a terrifying alliance. The gate commander barks orders to bolster the defense, hoping the enemy exhausts itself against the reinforced steel. Outside, the beasts claw relentlessly at the iron-strengthened gates until one suddenly drops dead, impaled by a spear from above. Gam stands perched upon the wall, clutching a handful of throwing blades and gripping a fresh spear. Inspired by Gam's resolve, the warriors fight with renewed ferocity, sworn to hold the line at any cost. A massive beast emerges behind the goblin horde, snatching a green creature mid-air. It's caught in a crushing grip before being hurled violently against the wall. Gans is knocked aside, tumbling through the air and crashing into a nearby tent. The remaining warriors finally realize the sheer scale of the danger. More monsters are launched over the walls like living projectiles. They bypass the overstretched defenders and begin slaughtering them from the rear. Gans watches in horror as the ruthless creatures finally shatter the main gates. Villagers scream in pure terror as Russ and his family huddle together inside their home. The parents desperately plead with the heavens to spare their daughter Carol. Russ lets out a yell as something hammers against their door until the wood splinters and caves in. A blood-soaked Gans steps through the wreckage alongside his sister. Gans' sister, Alila, quickly checks on the family, who are relieved to see the warrior. Gans assures them the blood on his armor belongs to monsters, while Kim's is from the wounded she's treated. While Kim patches up his wounds, Russ asks for an update on the battle. Gans hesitates for a moment before admitting that the situation is a complete lost cause. With the gates destroyed, a tidal wave of monsters is currently overtaking the town. Gans abandoned the front line once hope vanished, determined to at least save his sister and Russ's family. He warns them that the village is doomed and they must flee immediately. Russ looks at his terrified family and reveals they've already prepared a wagon full of supplies. The group rushes toward the stable while Gans keeps a sharp eye out for any incoming threats. Everyone scrambles onto the wagon in a desperate rush. Gams realizes they are finally ready to make their escape. But then, he spots two goblins closing in, their position completely compromised. Gams orders Russ to board the wagon before charging forward to meet the threat. He prepares to execute the creatures in one swift, devastating motion. He brings his longsword down with bone-crushing force. However, the goblin evades the strike and immediately counters. Gams slashes again, this time delivering a lethal, fatal blow. With the beast slain, Gams leaps onto the wagon as the shopkeeper guns it past the carnage. Gams informs Roos that the town's main gate is totally barricaded. Their only hope is a collapsed section of the northwestern wall. Russ nods, his eyes welling with tears as he stares into the distance. He watches in horror as the entire town is engulfed in a hellish inferno. Monsters slaughter the helpless villagers while black hounds feast on the corpses. Paralyzed by shock, Roos hears the agonizing screams of his neighbors echoing through the chaos. Beside him, Gams slays a boar-riding goblin and points toward the breach in the wall. The shopkeeper steers the wagon through the gap, escaping into the forbidden forest. The town is utterly lost as the monster horde burns everything to the ground. Within the ruins of her home, Carol's fairy tale book is reduced to ash. Cian sits in the speeding wagon as they leave the nightmare behind. Carol asks her mother if they will ever be able to return home. Lila cautiously replies that while they might return one day, new adventures await them elsewhere. Kem cheerfully insists that they only survived thanks to divine protection. She firmly believes the god of fate is guiding their path. Meanwhile, a delivery man arrives at Yoshio's house with a package from the village of fate. The young man signs for the delivery, his curiosity piqued. Back in the game, Gams trains Ruse in combat, relentlessly criticizing his weak spear thrusts. Gams tells Ruse that his pathetic attacks wouldn't even scratch a monster. The anxious shopkeeper accepts the harsh critique, his determination still flickering. Yoshio watches as Gams takes a knee. He bluntly states that Ruse simply isn't suited for direct combat. He suggests Ruse support him and moss from the rear instead of joining the front lines. Visibly upset, Ruse admits he thought raw strength was all that mattered and apologizes to Gams for wasting his time. At dinner, Ruse looks completely defeated. Layla asks Gams to gather fruit during his patrol since their supplies are running low. Gams agrees, which catches Carol's interest as she immediately volunteers to help. She explains that she's been stuck inside the cave ever since they arrived and needs a change of scenery. Ruse warns her that monsters become hyper-aggressive as the evil god's influence nears, making it far too risky. Carol brushes off the danger, claiming she'll be perfectly safe as long as she's with Gams. But Ruse refuses to back down and objects to the idea. She insists on gathering fruit, but Russ slams the table, shouting that it's far too dangerous, and demanding she obey. Silence falls over the room as Layla's worry grows, while Cam and Gams look away, leaving Moose to stay out of the conflict. Carol breaks down in tears while Layla attempts to reason with a stubborn Russ. He realizes his mistake too late as Carol sobs, screaming that she hates him before locking herself in her room. Watching from above, Yoshio notes that Russ is cracking under the immense pressure of leadership. Russ attempts to rally the villagers with talk of prophecy, but empty words won't solve their desperate situation. Thanks to the tributes, Yoshio's fate points climb to 214, making him consider a miracle like summoning hunters, though he fears it won't be enough. He worries the hunters might turn out to be savages who would only bring ruin to the villagers. He envisions them seizing the cave for themselves, realizing that while a normal game would be trivial, the stakes here demand a golem. He dreams of utilizing a golem to safeguard the villagers and handle any sudden threats that arise. But there's a catch. He needs 700 points, and gathering that much in just 10 days seems nearly impossible. Desperate, he briefly considers asking his parents for a loan. He quickly kills the thought, knowing they'd kick him out instantly if they caught him blowing borrowed cash on a game. Asking his younger sister for money is an even more humiliating dead end. He thinks about selling the villagers' gifts, but he has no idea if they're actually valuable, or if he can flip them for cash in time. Sighing in defeat, Yoshio slumps at his desk until a sudden spark of inspiration hits him. He grabs his laptop and begins a desperate search for part-time work. For anyone else, it's a simple fix, but for him, it's uncharted territory. He's never held a job. His only interview in university was a disaster, fueled by nerves and an arrogant desire for high-paying roles with elite benefits. It was a lesson he failed to learn, as he later threw himself at a major corporation only to be predictably rejected once again. His father intervenes, using his personal connections to secure him job referrals. But Yoshio fails every time, bringing nothing but embarrassment to his father. Deep down, he naively hopes that failing will excuse him from the workforce forever. Now, 10 years later, he finally resolves to try again, even for a simple part-time gig. He feels pathetic and spoiled for his age, paralyzed by the crushing fear of failing once more. The ghosts of his past failures haunt him, and he dreads the thought of letting anyone down again. Despite the terror, he prepares to push forward, browsing job listings while fearing others might laugh at his motives. He realizes that if he doesn't take action now, he will remain stagnant for the rest of his life. To truly support the villagers, he needs to earn money, making a short-term job his top priority. A convenience store gig takes too long, and his lack of social skills makes customer service feel like an impossible task. Local short-term work is rare, and without a license or a vehicle, his options are vanishing fast. Years of doing nothing have made even the simplest job hunt feel like a monumental struggle. On his screen, he watches Russ fail to offer a proper apology to his daughter. She turns away in pure anger, refusing to listen to his excuses. Seeing the weight of the situation, Yoshio finally finds the resolve to pull himself together. He gets dressed and declares his intention to help everyone he possibly can. He jumps on his bike and sets off to find job magazines, forcing himself to keep moving forward. When he returns, his mother is stunned to see that he actually left the house. Her shock turns into a warm greeting when she notices the job magazine tucked under his arm. Back in his room, he scours the ads relentlessly until the day is done. His mother's voice rings out, announcing that dinner is finally served. Descending the stairs, he's stunned to find his entire family gathered around the table. Yoshio stands frozen, completely caught off guard by his sister's sudden presence. When she speaks, he offers a warm welcome home that leaves her visibly startled. The family settles in to enjoy their meal together. Saki notices the feast is unusually lavish, but she's nearly sent into shock when her mom reveals Yoshio is hunting for a job. His sister praises his newfound motivation, though Yoshio quickly clarifies he's only seeking part-time work for some quick cash. His father locks eyes with him, declaring that his reasons don't matter as long as he's finally showing some initiative. Yoshio is floored, fully expecting his father to demand he secure a high-pressure, full-time career instead. Saki teases her big brother about his sudden change, wondering if a secret girlfriend is the cause, while his mom jokingly suggests he's not quite that popular. He lingers on the fact that his sister actually called him Big Brother again. His father speculates that this shift in attitude is linked to the mysterious gifts arriving from the village. Yoshio confesses that while he's been reviving the village, he felt it was wrong to keep taking without giving something back. Saki looks around in total confusion, but her mother quickly silences her, promising to explain the details after dinner. Later on the porch, his father joins him and asks if he's made any progress on the job hunt. He reveals he's narrowed it down to 3 leads and plans to make the calls tomorrow morning. When questioned if it is only temporary, Yoshio explains he has vital business in the village at the end of the month. His father observes a massive change in his son's willingness to jump into action. It's a far cry from the old Yoshio, who would lash out in anger and delay every responsibility. Asked about his preferences, Yoshio admits he's avoiding customer service in favor of demanding physical labor. His father offers to reach out to a friend for assistance. Yoshio is stunned and grateful, yet the fear of depending on his father and failing again haunts him. His father reassures him that a parent is always a parent, regardless of age, and there is zero shame in seeking help. He explains that utilizing every resource, including family, is a mark of true maturity for anyone striving to succeed. Suddenly, Yoshio envisions the connection between Russ and his own father. He recalls how the shopkeeper constantly urged his daughter to rely on his strength. Realizing his father is offering that same support, he bows deeply and requests his help. Without hesitation, his father turns to make the call. With no turning back, Yoshio trembles as his father negotiates with his buddy about casual work attire. Once the deal is sealed, he commands Yoshio to be ready within 30 minutes. Yoshio quickly shaves his beard and prepares for the challenge. He throws on a jersey, his heart racing with the crushing fear of disappointing his father. Berating himself for his weak-willed nature, he turns his gaze back to the screen. Back in the village, a frustrated Russ asks his wife if there is anything he can do to help. She informs him that Carol has already taken care of every task for the day. She notes that ever since their arrival, Carol has been working tirelessly to support everyone. She remarks on how fast children grow, only to realize Russ has already vanished. He rushes straight to Carol's side. He begins to offer an apology, but she beats him to it with her own. She explains that others have told her just how deeply he truly cherishes her. He only gets upset because he's desperate to keep her safe. Wrist feels a wave of guilt as she promises to never ask to go outside again. He kneels and touches her cheek, confessing that he was completely wrong. He admits that in his fear, he forgot they chose this new life together and can't hide away forever. Declaring her a vital part of the village, Wrist tells his daughter he trusts her to do as she pleases. This brings a bright smile to her face as the others watch the heartwarming scene. Yoshio finally rises from his chair with a new sense of purpose. He lifts his gaze and flashes a confident grin. He thanks the villagers for giving his bravery the boost it needed. Vowing that he'll return soon, he finally steps out of his room. As he heads downstairs, the villagers erupt into thunderous cheers. His father drives him to his new job, while Yoshio asks what the work actually entails. His father explains it's cleaning duty at a friend's supermarket that's short-staffed after a worker quit. While his father is thrilled to see him fitting in, Yoshio isn't sure if cleaning is his calling. At a small supermarket, a bearded man greets Yoshio and his father with open arms. The man in overalls immediately hails Yoshio as a total lifesaver. He pats his shoulder, admitting he heard Yoshio was a recluse but can see he's actually quite strong. Yoshio's father hopes they get along before leaving, and Yoshio instinctively reaches out to stop him. He catches himself, realizing he's no longer a child and has professional responsibilities now. His new boss leads him inside, telling him to just follow instructions and ask the other workers for help. The manager introduces Yoshio to his new co-workers, a man and a woman, sternly warning them not to tease or mess with the newcomer. The duo welcomes him with light-hearted jokes, and Yoshio instantly realizes their social skills far outshine his own. Accepting his status as a complete amateur, he casts aside his useless pride and vows to work his hardest without any ego. He offers a polite greeting to his new team, desperately hoping they can find common ground. Once his first shift concludes, the manager drives him home and asks if he's ready to return the following day. He explains that the next shift starts late, promising to pick Yoshio up at 8 p.m. sharp. His co-workers shower his efforts with praise before shouting their goodbyes as the van pulls away. Overflowing with a sense of accomplishment, Yoshio steps back into his home. By now, the rest of the household is already fast asleep. Thanks to the friendly atmosphere, he managed to stay composed and successfully tackle every task assigned to him. He spent the night hauling heavy equipment and using a powerful industrial vacuum to suck up grime and gravel. After meticulously cleaning his tools, Yoshio humbly assumes the manager must have given him the easiest jobs by mistake. He stands there completely drained and covered in filth after a grueling night of manual labor. While he craves a hot bath, he heads straight to the kitchen first to quench his thirst. Flicking on the lights, he's stunned to find a fresh plate of food waiting for him alongside a note from his mother. She offers her heartfelt congratulations on his first day and insists that he eats his fill. With a tired but genuine grin, Yoshio finally takes a seat. He peels back the plastic wrap and takes a massive bite, savoring the incredible flavor of a home-cooked meal. Yoshio reflects on how food tastes infinitely better when it's earned through a long day of honest effort. He offers a silent prayer of gratitude to his mother before finishing every last bite. Heading upstairs, he wonders why he was ever afraid of joining the workforce. He notices the bathroom is already steaming. With the hot water ready, he realizes his mother thoughtfully prepared the bath just for him. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he sinks into the tub to soak away the day's stress. As the clock nears 3:30 a.m., he returns to his monitor to check on his villagers. He finds the majority of them fast asleep. The village is silent, with every resident resting peacefully in their rooms. Yoshio admits aloud that their daily perseverance is what inspires him to keep moving forward. Witnessing their relentless toil gives him the ultimate strength to push through. With a final glance, he heads to bed, wishing them all sweet dreams. The next morning, Yoshio wakes up feeling absolutely battered. His back aches intensely, making him wonder if he can even survive his next shift. He enters the kitchen to find his mother waiting for him. She offers to warm his lunch, but Yoshio insists on doing it himself as they sit together. When she asks about the job, he claims the work is easy and the people are kind, mentioning his return shift. She beams with pride, overjoyed to see him working so hard. Flustered, Yoshio shifts the topic to thank her for the meal, prompting her to tease him for being so well-behaved. As he thanks her again, she mentions that a new parcel from the village has arrived for him. Yoshio carries the package upstairs, guessing by the size that it's a gift from Carol. Tearing it open, he confirms his suspicion and happily pulls out a ball of dirt. Although the villagers believe they are limited to one daily tribute, they can actually offer two. However, Carol mimics the adults by sending items at random, inadvertently capping their limit at one. She frequently offers him unique river stones, delicate white flowers, and polished dirt balls. Lately, she has been carving miniature wooden figures of Gams, the god of fate, with her craftsmanship growing more refined with every piece. Even so, watching her handle a sharp carving knife leaves Yoshio feeling incredibly anxious. She completes her latest masterpiece and proudly presents it to a contemplative Moss. Carol breaks Moss's silence to showcase her newest hand-carved statue. The doctor smiles instantly, recognizing the unmistakable likeness of the god of fate. Back in the real world, Yoshio carefully arranges her latest dirt ball alongside her previous gifts. To anyone else, they are mere junk, but to Carol and Yoshio, they are priceless treasures. He finds himself wondering if these items are crafted by a game developer or by Carol's own hand. Though logic tells him it's just code, he prefers the heartwarming idea that she made them specifically for him. Exhausted and aching, Yoshio finally collapses into bed, hoping his sore muscles recover by morning. He marvels at Carol's persistent messages and feels a sense of pride knowing his mother is happy with his new employment. Later that evening, his boss notes that Yoshio is adapting to the new role at an impressive pace. He advises Yoshio to take it easy and not push himself too hard. After all, mastering every single skill in just 2 days is an impossible feat. The boss reassures him that the crew is solid, explaining that a seemingly arrogant coworker is actually just a focused professional. Yoshio realizes he was wrong to judge the boy so quickly, acknowledging his incredible speed and technical skill. His boss reinforces that consistent diligence is the true key to success, praising Yoshio as a top-tier worker. This fills him with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The manager continues to trade jokes and banter with the staff. Yoshio senses a warm atmosphere and feels ready to give this job his absolute best. This is a crucial turning point, as it's his first real job since returning home. With a week left until the evil god's temptation, he vows to stay driven for the sake of his villagers. Short on time, he quickly scans the day's conversation logs within the game. He envisions Kem pressuring Gams to finally take a much-needed break. Carol playfully suggests they nap together, sparking a bickering match as Gams walks away. Next, Russ informs Lilith about his recent progress. He explains that he's been mastering the secrets of crafting antidote mixtures. However, he remains uncertain about their true potency. Feeling inferior to warriors like Gams or the Doctor, Russ questions how he can truly contribute. This prompts Lilith to hug him, declaring him to be incredibly dependable. Yoshio admires their unwavering hope in the face of the evil god's looming threat. But as he continues reading the log, his eyes widen in absolute disbelief. A mysterious voice reports on the village, dismissing them as harmless refugees while vowing to maintain surveillance. The speaker predicts they'll perish from the temptation like the humans before them, yet this name isn't on the villager list. The unknown figure expresses deep concern over the village's blessing from the god of fate. They realize that acting against the villagers could trigger a devastating divine wrath. The voice advises caution, deciding to let nature's judgment eliminate these intruders from their sacred land. Stunned, Yoshio realizes the spy is none other than Moss, the village doctor. This revelation leaves Yoshio absolutely reeling. He had trusted Moss as a reliable medic, but now he understands why the game classifies him as a guest rather than an ally. Yoshio learns that Moss belongs to a forest tribe that has watched the villagers with suspicion since the moment they arrived. However, the tribe is wary of the village's divine protection, fearing the wrath of the god of fate. This divine blessing adds a layer of complexity, forcing the vigilant tribe to hesitate before interfering. Yoshio realizes his influence is truly benefiting the villagers, and he takes pride in his divine role. But a grim reality sets in. If Moss refuses to assist in battle, Gams will be forced to face the monsters alone during the evil god's temptation. Uncertain of his next move, Yoshio decides to share a prophecy the following day that hints at Moss's true identity. He plans to issue a stern warning the moment he wakes up, pressuring Moss to abandon any treacherous schemes. The next morning arrives, and the villagers sit down for breakfast alongside Moss. Yoshio delivers his latest divine prophecy, leaving Kim ecstatic as her Bible begins to glow with light. She announces the urgent message as Yoshio apologizes for the interruption, commanding them to endure the evil god's trial. He promises to unleash his special abilities to tip the scales in their favor. He assures them that they remain safe and secure under his eternal divine gaze. He concludes the prophecy with a chilling reminder. Anyone who threatens his people will face his ultimate judgment. This warning sends a shiver down Moss's spine, though he tries to play it cool when Kim notices his reaction. Yet Yoshio sees the truth. Moss is genuinely terrified of the god of fate's overwhelming power. Gams confidently declares that they will survive with divine aid, but reminds them that they must still work hard, as God has no room for the lazy. Those words strike Yoshio hard, giving him a temporary reprieve from any outside meddling. Shifting his focus to their raw combat power, Yoshio realizes he must rely on a golem. He grows restless with excitement at the thought of commanding a golem alongside Gams. To secure this beast, he needs to grind for another week to earn the remaining 350 fate points. When the night shift begins, he climbs into the work van once more. However, he quickly notices that his co-worker, Yamamoto, is nowhere to be found. A colleague explains that Yamamoto called out sick for the day. Their boss announces they're tackling a smaller store tonight, meaning they'll finish in record time. The boss even praises Yoshio, calling him a vital asset to the team. Arriving home much earlier than expected, Yoshio finds both of his parents waiting in the kitchen. His mother pouts, wishing he'd called so they could have shared a family meal. He explains that his schedule is unpredictable, dictated entirely by the speed of the job. She sighs, but her mood quickly shifts as she happily prepares a warm meal for her son. Yoshio can't help but notice his mother's uncharacteristically cheerful aura. He considers asking his father why she's so happy, but his social anxiety holds him back. He desperately wants to break the silence and thank his father for the employment. Just as he hesitates, his mother announces that dinner is served. The air is thick with anticipation as Yoshio finally caves to the pressure and asks what's going on. But the moment she mentions his father, the flustered man frantically cuts her off. His father suddenly announces her favorite show is starting, catching Yoshio off guard. Retreating to his room later, Yoshio feels completely drained from the day. He realizes that being the boss's go-to guy has pushed him way too hard. Letting out a massive yawn, he prepares to collapse into bed for the night. However, his sense of duty wins out, and he decides to check on the villagers first. He finds Carol already deep in her slumber. Meanwhile, Gams and Kim are also settling in for some much-needed rest. As the others follow suit, Layla seems to be sharing a private, intimate moment in the kitchen. Elsewhere, Moose stares at the ceiling, having officially moved into the cave. Yoshio ponders the doctor's true motives, wondering if he's waiting for the evil god's influence to take hold. Since the villagers feel safer with Moose around, Yoshio decides to monitor him closely, rather than kick him out. Despite the early hour, he realizes it's been ages since he felt this genuinely exhausted. Just as he's about to drift off, he notices a mysterious button labeled with real kanji. Recalling the dream bubble incident with Gams, he takes a gamble and hits the button before sleeping. Suddenly, the entire screen shifts, transforming into something entirely different. To his absolute shock, a modern house appears on the display. He zooms in on the familiar layout, scanning the rooms as a sense of dread builds. In a jarring twist, he realizes he's looking directly into his own home. While desperately trying to navigate back to the game world, Yoshio fumbles the controls. He accidentally peers into the bathroom, catching his sister in the middle of a shower. He finds himself wishing her chest would develop just a little more. He's certain she'd murder him if this were real. But fortunately, he's just dreaming. He calms his nerves, convinced he simply drifted off while playing the Village of Fate. Next, his gaze shifts to his parents talking in the living room. Since it's just a dream, he decides there's no harm in eavesdropping on their private conversation. His father urges his mother to stop mentioning a certain topic in front of Yoshio, but she refuses to back down. She reveals that Yoshio gave her a wedding anniversary gift for the first time in years, and she's dying to show it off. Yoshio had no idea today was their anniversary, feeling a wave of awkwardness at witnessing his parents' intimate bond. His father expresses relief that she liked the gift, finally apologizing for his cold distance over the last decade. His mother notes that he hasn't smiled since that day, and Yoshio's heart sinks as his father admits the pain still lingers. The confession pierces him like a blade, the weight of the moment feeling all too real despite being a dream. Looking back, he remembers a time before he became a shut-in NEET, when his father was much more relaxed. Even though his father was always a man of few words, he gave his absolute all to his family, even injuring himself during a father-son relay. Whenever Yoshio struggled with his schoolwork, his father was there to guide him, even sneaking him ice cream after his mother scolded him. He would stay by his side until the tears stopped, leaving Yoshio to wonder how he could ever forget such precious memories. He had spent years viewing his father as nothing more than a stern, distant figure. To avoid facing his own role in fracturing the family, he subconsciously twisted his memories into a protective shield. These warped thoughts haunted him throughout his years of isolation as a NEET. Overwhelmed by frustration and regret, Yoshio slams his fist against his desk. However, his mother notes that he finally has a job and looks happier, while his father admits he's been waiting years to apologize. Yoshio stands stunned. While he feels he owes an apology, he can't fathom why his father would owe him one. His mother realizes he's referring to an old argument, a grudge the man has carried for years. Years ago, he lashed out at Yoshio, claiming he wasn't trying hard enough and that anyone serious could find employment. Yoshio was devastated, knowing he was pouring every ounce of effort into his job search. His mother chuckles, recalling how his father was actually a massive slacker in college who barely scraped by with a degree. Yoshio can't even imagine his rigid father as a carefree student, yet the man admits the truth. He confesses that if his younger self existed in today's world, he'd be doing much worse than Yoshio. Back then, the job market was easy, with companies practically begging for new hires. He admits Yoshio worked far harder than he ever did, truly dedicating himself to finding a career. Yet, despite his own failures, he ignored his flaws just to lecture Yoshio. He realized he had absolutely no right to judge his son. With a trembling voice, he confesses his struggle to be a good father while carrying a burden too heavy to bear. To pretend he was respectable while preaching to Yoshio made him feel like a complete hypocrite. He hated being pressured to study as a kid, so he tried to avoid pushing that same stress onto his own children. Realizing he'd become the very person he resented, Yoshio breaks down in tears, insisting his father is wrong. Despite his history, Yoshio has always admired his father's unwavering dedication. Witnessing his father give everything his all served as Yoshio's ultimate inspiration. His mother takes the father's hands, reassuring him that he's always been a wonderful man. She begs him to finally release the crushing weight from his shoulders. They may be adults with grown children, but parents are just humans with a bit more experience, not perfection. Yoshio's father wipes his eyes, admitting he once viewed adults as infallible, upright figures. His wife suggests that they too are still growing and evolving. Just like their sons, they must strive to improve. As his parents hold hands, Yoshio weeps with relief. He knows this is just a dream, yet he's overjoyed that his parents' view of adulthood aligns with his. They appear honorable, yet burdened by weights far too heavy to carry. His heart finally feels light. Yoshio awakens the following morning. He finds himself back at his computer. A smile spreads across his face as he realizes it was a dream, but he feels completely at peace. Heading downstairs, he senses that he can finally speak openly with his parents. He greets his family with genuine warmth. Later that day, Yoshio is seen sprinting down the street. He's panting heavily. It is now November 30th. The day of the evil god's temptation has arrived, at 1:32 a.m. He races to reach his computer, wondering how everything escalated to this point. Rewind to 2 days earlier, on November 28th. Yoshio's eyes are glued to his monitor. He watches the villagers go about their routines, determined to observe them until his work shift begins. The entire village is steadily preparing for the evil god's temptation. The women gather supplies while the men reinforce the structures. They've rebuilt the fence and added a new watchtower. Atop the watchtower, a guard crouches, scanning the surroundings with absolute vigilance. Sensing movement, he snaps into action. He aims his weapon at a black beast stalking toward Gams and Russ. The two are completely preoccupied with repairing the walls. The beast growls from deep within the thicket. The bushes tremble as it prepares its deadly lunge. Detecting the threat, the doctor draws his bow and releases a swift shot. The arrow pierces this beast's throat with lethal precision, proving the watchtower is his perfect domain. Russ gestures his gratitude for the save, while the doctor warmly acknowledges him from his post. Yet Yoshio wonders how long the doctor will stay, doubting he'll brave the evil god's temptation. He suspects the man might use the chaos of the monster raids to make a quiet exit. The evil god's temptation is Yoshio's first massive raid, a trial that's usually a breeze in other games. But the Village of Fate is different. It's a hardcore survival sim where mistakes are fatal. Watching the villagers fortify their home fills Yoshio with a sense of accomplishment. He knows that if he fails here, he'll lose his spark and retreat back into his shell as a shut-in. He refuses to let that happen, determined to see both the village and himself grow. Right now, his balance sits at 540 fate points. By converting his part-time earnings, he'll hit the 700-point mark required to summon a miracle. Achieving this would grant the villagers the ultimate trump card against the coming monsters. The greatest advantage is that Yoshio gains direct command over this divine power. With 10 years of experience across every genre imaginable, he's confident he can master any controls. His shift ends late, leaving him to prepare for the evil god's temptation tomorrow. Darkness eventually descends upon the village. Kem diligently tends to the sacred altar. Nearby, Gams sharpens his weapons for the coming slaughter. Carol approaches the warrior, tugging on his sleeve to ask if they'll truly be safe. Carol clings to Gam's arm, sparking a wave of jealousy in Kem, before Ken refocuses the group on the impending assault. Rose recalls the tragic fate of their last village, wondering if they can survive what's coming. His gaze drops as a heavy silence fills the cave. Moss finally breaks the quiet with a grim warning. He explains that this forbidden forest is a death trap teeming with lethal monsters. He admits he usually avoids this place during the god's temptation, and offers a cryptic apology. Ken insists his assistance has been more than enough, noting that Moss is already a massive asset. Yoshio realizes that without the dark truth, Moss would seem like a kind, dependable doctor. Gams points out that their wagon wheels are shattered, making an escape through the woods impossible. Moss agrees, stating that while he and Gams might survive alone, the group wouldn't stand a chance. Upon hearing this, Gams stands up with newfound pride. Clenching his fist, he declares they will find a way to crush the monsters and survive. He vows to rally everyone to stay alive, filling the group with fresh hope as Yoshio watches in admiration. The warrior then turns to face Moss directly. He bows deeply in gratitude, expressing his hope that Moss will stand by their side in the coming war. He respects that this choice isn't his to make. Mao stands stunned by their heartfelt gratitude as the villagers bow in unison. Yoshio senses that everyone already views Mao as the village's future leader. The doctor urges them to stand tall, confessing he should have spoken up much sooner. With a family waiting for him, he prepares to depart, leaving behind vital medicinal herbs for their survival. Carol approaches the doctor, her voice trembling as she asks if he's truly leaving them. He offers a gentle apology while softly patting her hair. She manages a smile, inviting him to return and play with them again someday. Yoshio admits Mao's true nature remains a mystery, yet he's certain the man isn't evil. Though Mao was acting as a spy, his heart wasn't in it, leaving Yoshio hoping there's no bad blood. Stretching his weary limbs, the young man realizes his shift is starting and rushes downstairs. Yoshio dives into his work, cleaning the supermarket alongside his dedicated team. He wrestles with a heavy commercial vacuum that becomes a beast as it sucks up spills. While his boss handles the polisher, Misaki scrapes away grime to clear a path for Yoshio. Yamamoto follows behind, expertly mopping and waxing the floors to a mirror finish. The team finally settles in for a well-deserved break. Yamamoto strikes up a conversation while grabbing a refreshing milk tea. A shy Yoshio fumbles through the small talk, prompting Yamamoto to suggest a more casual tone. Respecting the hierarchy, Yamamoto agrees to wait until Yoshio is comfortable before dropping formalities. Yoshio notes that Yamamoto is a hardcore gamer who dominates local cybercafe competitions every week. Yamamoto asks Yoshio if he plays any smartphone games. Yoshio admits he never owned one during his years as a shut-in, claiming a PC was always more his style. Surprisingly, Yamamoto remains incredibly friendly, even revealing that he survived his own shut-in phase back in the day. This confession causes Yoshio's respect for the man to soar as Yamamoto begins describing a visually stunning game he used to love. Before he can recall the title, their boss barks at them to stop chatting and get back to work. Returning to his tasks, Yoshio realizes that The Village of Fate is the only game that truly matters to him now. After the shift, his boss drops him off and mentions he's off for the rest of November, though he'll be needed for the massive year-end cleanup. As the van pulls away, Yoshio rushes to his room and immediately fires up his monitor. He sees that Merce has finally emerged from the cave. The doctor left behind a tidy row of healing mixtures along with precise instructions for the villagers. Yoshio grins, realizing the doctor wasn't such a bad guy after all, and hopes he returns once the village overcomes the looming evil. By November 29th, an exhausted Garm keeps a vigilant watch from atop the tower. Nearby, Isla and Rose carry out their daily tasks with a sense of mounting dread. Sensing the heavy atmosphere, Kem prays fervently at the altar, prompting Yoshio to wonder how he can ease their stress. He decides the best course of action is to craft a comforting prophecy right away. Suddenly, Kem's Bible begins to glow with the light of a new divine message. The god of fate urges the villagers to trust in his protection, vowing to intervene if a true threat arises. Yoshio believes this will keep them upbeat without making them over-reliant on him, while also preparing them for the golem's help. Relieved, Kem shares the news of their divine safeguard, reigniting a spark of hope throughout the village. A satisfied Yoshio finally relaxes, now eager to summon the golem, though he's still figuring out exactly how to do it. He decides to hold off until a true crisis hits, debating between a quick nap or a meal. Yoshio heads downstairs to sear some exotic meat and enjoys a mysterious fruit for dessert. He savors the flavor, noting how his family's health has skyrocketed since consuming these divine gifts. Suddenly his phone rings. It's his boss with news of an urgent last-minute job. After calming the man down, the boss explains that Yoshio simply needs to watch over the villagers for the day. Yoshio inquires about the schedule and learns the task should wrap up by 9 p.m. Yoshio accepts the gig, and his boss hails him as a savior, mentioning that Yamato took an unexpected day off. Yoshio wonders what's happening, guessing the young man is just relaxing while weighing a fair trade-off. Later, his boss haggles with a store owner over their cleaning service, pushing for a multi-week contract extension. Meanwhile, Yoshio anxiously checks his watch as the time hits 9:15 p.m. Though his boss offers to let him go, Yoshio insists on staying until the work is finished. He expects a swift conclusion to the night, but by 12:37 a.m., he finds himself hopelessly trapped in a massive traffic jam. A police officer orders them to turn back, citing a crash linked to the evil god's dark temptation. Yoshio panics, fearing the monsters may have already attacked and annihilated the villagers. He informs his boss of the situation and decides to finish the journey on foot. He bids his boss farewell with a sharp grin before departing. He begins racing off toward his destination. He curses his luck as the clock finally strikes a desperate time. It is now 1:23 a.m. Gasped for breath after his first sprint in years, Yoshio's mind is consumed by the safety of the villagers. He pushes past the agonizing ache in his lungs, racing against the clock to reach home. Panting heavily, he bursts through the door and kicks off his shoes in a blur of motion. He bolts upstairs, his voice echoing through the house as he shouts to check on everyone. Despite his mounting panic, there is no sign of a monster raid anywhere. Gams remains steadfast on guard duty. Everyone else is safe and sound in their beds. Yoshio finally exhales a massive sigh of relief. But the peace is short-lived as his sister appears in the doorway, complaining about the racket he's making. Yoshio promises to keep it down, but his sister isn't letting him off that easy. She stares him down, pointing out his sweat-drenched, filthy clothes and demanding he go bathe. Averting his gaze, he quickly agrees to go wash up. She immediately calls out his lie, reminding him that she has always been able to see right through his act. Glancing at his monitor, Saki notes he's been gaming late and asks if there's some kind of special event. She mentions their mom filled her in, explaining how Yoshio begged her not to shut off the PC. As Saki enters the room, fully aware of the odd situation, Yoshio desperately ponders his next move. Recalling the game's strict warnings, he spins a half-truth, claiming he's a beta tester who faces massive fines if he leaks any details. Saki mutters about his convenient excuse, but she surprisingly offers to monitor the game while he showers. He quickly briefs her on the imminent monster outbreak, pleading with her to alert him the second trouble starts. In the bathroom, Yoshio considers a quick rinse, but fearing his sister's sharp intuition, he decides to wash thoroughly instead. Back in his room, Yoshio reassumes control as Saki confirms the situation is stable. She notes that Gams hasn't moved, while Yoshio worries the game's hyper-realism will blow his cover. Saki calls out his shifty behavior, and feeling cornered, Yoshio finally confesses. He admits he's hiding something, but promises it's a secret that will benefit the family later. After a heavy silence, Saki finally stands. She simply calls him Big Brother and heads off to bed. Alone at last, Yoshio reflects on their talk, hoping their relationship is finally healing. He turns his attention to the village, relieved to find no monsters in sight. 22 hours remain on the clock as the sun rises, leaving him physically drained. Yoshio lets out a yawn, realizing that even with godlike influence, pulling an all-nighter after a brutal workday is taking its toll. Since the night passed peacefully, he considers a nap, but fears what might happen if he sleeps. Deciding on a caffeine fix, he grabs a coffee and runs into his parents, who are already busy in the kitchen. His mother expresses surprise at seeing her son up so early. He makes an excuse, claiming he needs to coordinate with the villagers to prepare. His father praises his dedication as Yoshio retreats back to his room. Once inside, he's relieved to see no changes, though the constant pressure is exhausting. He checks the villagers, watching Gams stand guard while the others rotate their rest. The girls stay on high alert while Kem prays for the strength to endure. Yoshio finds himself torn between wanting action and hoping for a peaceful day. After dozing off, he jolts awake, slaps his face, and prepares to grab more coffee. Suddenly, he senses a sinister presence emerging from the woods. Gams scans the area intently, refusing to let his guard down. High atop the watchtower, a frantic alarm suddenly blares. The evil god's temptation event begins, and Gams immediately readies his spear. Peering through a gap in the wall, he identifies 5 targets. A pack of black dogs is rapidly closing in on the village. Yoshio instantly recalls the lethal threat of their venomous fangs. He doubts the beasts can breach their defenses so easily. As the creatures hesitate, he wonders if they will actually retreat. But one suddenly gains speed and vaults over the sharp stakes. The leaping monster is met with a brutal reception. Gam's spear pierces the beast mid-air, sending it crashing to the dirt. It lies dead in an instant, prompting a cheer from Yoshio. The remaining 4 beasts charge the line together, leaping for the kill. Gams expertly skewers the first 2 with his spears. However, a 3rd beast manages to slip through the initial defense, only to be ruthlessly slashed down by the warrior's backup sword. The final dog circles Gams, who calmly draws a 2nd blade for the finish. He charges forward, sliding low beneath the beast. He delivers a lethal upward slash, leaving the monster to collapse in a pool of its own blood. Yoshio is absolutely thrilled, marveling at the warrior's godlike strength. He and Carol emerge from the cave to cheer for their protector. Gams warns them to keep their distance, anticipating another deadly strike. Bruce scales the watchtower and scans the perimeter, finding no immediate threats. A concerned Kem rushes out to check on her husband, pleading with him to stay safe. With a heavy sigh, Gams relents and asks the group for a helping hand. The girls agree with playful banter, until they realize they have to haul massive monster corpses. Their excitement instantly turns to pure dismay. They're forced to handle the gore-soaked cleanup alongside Gams. Kem ushers the girls inside while the men begin clearing the courtyard. Yoshio feels a surge of confidence after repelling the first wave. He begins to think they might not even need divine intervention to win. 4 hours into the evil god's temptation, Gams finally takes a breather near the watchtower. But as water is brought out, the shadows begin to move once more. A pack of black dogs and ferocious boars launch a sudden, violent assault. The fortifications the villagers built earlier proved to be a masterstroke, holding the line. The boars are unable to leap the fence, crashing headfirst into the lethal stakes. Gams remains calm, systematically taking down the hounds as they vault over the barrier. Surviving the late afternoon assault, Yoshio meticulously tracks the timing of every wave. Gams has only sustained minor injuries so far, but Yoshio fears even this elite warrior will eventually succumb to exhaustion. He plans to recruit additional fighters, provided they can survive the evil god's temptation. Meanwhile, Russ focuses his efforts on repairing the damaged fortifications. Layla prepares a fresh meal to keep Gams' strength up during the siege. Yoshio decides it's finally time to take a break for some food and drink himself. As he grabs snacks, his mother invites him to dinner, but he refuses to leave his computer for even a moment. Even the lure of his favorite fried chicken isn't enough to pull him away from the screen. As evening falls, Russ spots a new threat from the watchtower and sounds the alarm. A pack of 4 shadowhounds and 3 ferocious boars emerges from the tree line. This marks the first mixed assault Yoshio has seen, prompting Gams to order Russ into the safety of the cave. Russ pleads with the warrior not to push himself past his physical limits. Armed with a spear, Gams vows to give his all as the boars ram the spiked wall while the hounds leap over. Gams unsheaths his longsword, swiftly executing the hounds that manage to breach the perimeter. Suddenly, a deafening crash signals that the wall has finally buckled under the boar's weight. With the defenses compromised, Yoshio considers summoning the golem but decides to hold his ground for now. Grunting with effort, Gams grabs another spear to face the charging beasts head-on. He plants the spear in the dirt, using it to vault over the boars as they rush toward him. In a display of incredible skill, the warrior draws a knife and hurls it directly into a boar's skull. He quickly retrieves another spear, steadying himself as the next beast closes the gap. The final boar charges directly at him. He drives the spear deep into its skull. Yoshio cheers for his flawless victory, boasting that his charm will now captivate everyone, not just Carolyn. He gazes at the fence while Gams suggests repairing the breach. Rust steps in immediately, taking the burden upon himself and ordering Gams to rest. He warns that they are all doomed if Gams pushes himself to exhaustion. Layla tells her daughter to give the warrior a tight hug to restrain him, and the girl joyfully complies. Ro tells Kim to fetch string and nails, calling for his wife's help as well. Yoshio nods in approval, praising Ro as a truly dependable man. As the night drags on, Gams finally takes a moment to recover. His sister offers endless prayers for their safety. Rust and his family work tirelessly to patch up the fence. Yoshio realizes the next assault is imminent, but his eyes widen in terror as he spots something horrifying. A massive horde of over 20 monsters nears the camp, and Gams immediately senses the danger. He screams for everyone to retreat to the safety of the cave. As they scramble to obey, a message flashes on Yoshio's screen announcing the final wave, sparking his adrenaline. This final wave unleashes fierce boars and black dogs alongside the hideous humanoids from the game's beginning. Inspecting them, Yoshio identifies these creatures as green goblins. One of the goblins begins hacking away at the stakes designed to stop the boars. Yoshio is stunned by its eerily human-like intelligence. Behind the wall, Gans readies himself with 2 spears. The barrier finally collapses. Monsters flood through the gap as a fierce boar charges straight at Gans. The impact sends him reeling in agony. Watching from the safety of the cave entrance, Kim screams in panic as her brother struggles to find his footing. Vicious monsters quickly close in around him. Kim throws the door open, desperate to reach him, but Lust grabs her and forces her to stay back. Layla warns that rushing out won't change their fate, while Carol trembles as the situation spirals. She insists that this is no time for Yoshio to simply watch. Yoshio finally triggers the golem summon miracle. A blinding flash of light erupts, momentarily obscuring his vision. When his sight returns, his perspective has shifted to the golem's eyes. He is now in total control. The golem stands within the cave, and he knows exactly where the exit lies. He grips his controller as the UI displays the movement commands. He maneuvers the golem forward, noting the massive sword in its grasp. He charges toward the cave's mouth. The villagers gathered near the door turn in sheer shock as they feel a massive presence behind them. They freeze as the golem thunders past and Yoshio vows to save Gans. As he speeds by Kim, he stares in sheer disbelief at the godlike figure standing before him. Outside, a battered Gams stands his ground at the cave entrance, gripping a blood-stained blade as he vows to fight to the death. Suddenly, a green goblin ambushes him, leaping onto his back. It claws desperately at his throat, but he manages to drive a knife deep into its skull. Without a moment's rest, another goblin lunges at him from the front. Now weaponless, Gams shuts his eyes and braces for the inevitable end. Suddenly, a surge of power rushes past him, and he opens his eyes to see the goblin's arms being sliced clean off. As the creature is hurled backward, he spots the dark silhouette of the golem standing before him. Yoshio commands him to step back as he takes full control of the battlefield. 2 black dogs lunge together, but the golem cuts them down with a single devastating slash. Yoshio is thrilled, knowing his decision to save fate points for this summon was perfectly justified. Having mastered the enemy's attack patterns from previous encounters, he is ready for anything. Yoshio begins effortlessly carving through the wave of approaching monsters. He handles the horde with absolute ease while steadily advancing forward. While the controls are familiar, he realizes a third-person perspective would make commanding the golem much simpler. He quickly spots a button to change the camera angle. With a single press, he finally sees the golem's true form with total clarity. Instead of the rough stone monster he expected, the golem appears fully human, dressed in a simple robe. Wearing armored greaves and sporting a long ponytail, the warrior clutches a blood-slicked blade. Yoshio is stunned by the massive contrast between this reality and his imagination. He feels an eerie sense of familiarity, as if he's witnessed this before. He realizes the golem was crafted from the very wooden statue Gams and Kem carved specifically for the altar. This confirms it as the true physical embodiment of the god of fate. Soon, the golem stands alone by a shattered fence, surrounded by the carnage of slaughtered monsters. Kem helps Gams to his feet as the villagers gaze at their savior with a mix of awe and exhaustion. Yoshio's screen flashes a notification. The evil god's temptation has ended, and the monster onslaught is over for the day. He lets out a shout of pure excitement. With tears in her eyes, Kem admires the golem's gallant appearance, thanking the deity profusely. The other villagers join her, offering their deepest gratitude to the god of fate for delivering them in their darkest hour. Carol eagerly recounts the statue's blinding speed, though Yoshio knows this is just high-tier game design. The villagers lavish him with praise, making their god feel a bit embarrassed. He decides to respond, but notices the golem is frozen in place, making him wonder if the game is glitching. A notification explains the golem's mechanics. It consumes fate points every second and becomes immobile once they're depleted. Shocked by the cost, Yoshio realizes that using the golem burned through thousands of yen in mere moments. He had hoped to use it regularly for the village's sake, but now sees it won't be that simple. Still, seeing the villagers' joy brings a genuine smile to his face. Raising his arms, he declares victory and shouts "Banzai!" urging himself to embrace the moment while planning to tell the villagers that the attacks have finally ceased. The Bible glows, relaying the divine prophecy to the devout villagers. They rejoice at the miraculous news. Working together, they carry the statue of the god of fate back to its sacred altar. As they bow in prayer, Yoshio commends their bravery and encourages them to finally rest in peace. Zooming out, he surveys the cave's grim perimeter. He takes in the battle's aftermath, noting a strange detail for a digital world. These monster corpses don't vanish into pixels, meaning a massive cleanup is required. As he scans the carnage, he spots a familiar arrow buried deep in a fierce boar's neck. A smirk forms on his face as he realizes Moss was sniping enemies from the shadows to protect the village. Fast forward a few days, and Yamamoto approaches Yoshio to apologize for his sudden absence the previous month. He admits that skipping work was a lifesaver, because something entirely unexpected demanded his attention. While grabbing drinks from a vending machine, Yoshio tells him not to sweat it, revealing he was also preoccupied on the final day of the month. It turns out Yoshio couldn't have covered the shift anyway due to his own sudden emergency. Relieved, Yamamoto offers to buy him a drink, and Yoshio settles on a warm milk tea. As the young man fetches the cans, Yoshio asks what could have possibly pulled him away from work so suddenly. Shyly rubbing the back of his head, Yamamoto begs him to keep the truth a secret from their boss. Yoshio smiles, assuming it was a hot date, but Yamamoto confesses it was actually a limited-time gaming event he couldn't miss. Yoshio lets out an awkward chuckle at the honesty, nodding along as he asks if the event was anything special. Seeing that Yoshio isn't upset, Yamamoto gushes about his latest obsession, explaining he'd been prepping for this end-of-the-month event for days. Recognizing the parallels to his own village experience, Yoshio asks if it's a city builder. However, Yamamoto finds those dull, preferring the high-octane thrill of PvP. Yoshio breathes a sigh of relief, realizing Yamamoto's game has nothing to do with the Village of Fate. In his world, the enemies are just mindless monsters. He mentions he tried PvP once but lacked the skill, leaving Yamamoto visibly disappointed. Yamamoto laments that he could have given him some pro tips, then takes a sip of his tea, enjoying their shared gamer bond. That night, Yoshio logs back in to find the villagers have cleared the corpses and are nearly finished repairing the fence. He dives into the day's chat logs, spotting a conversation where the shopkeeper is urging a wounded warrior to rest after resisting the evil god's influence. No matter how much he's healed, Gams refuses to rest. Despite Kem's magic mending his body, the warrior insists on carrying the burden of the manual labor. He completely ignores Kem's desperate pleas for him to take it easy and recover. Suddenly, Carol shoves the priestess aside, aggressively offering Gams a massage instead. This sparks an immediate clash as Kem tells her to stop interfering while she's trying to speak with her brother. Carol claims Gams would rather talk to her, but Kem snaps back at the nonsense, just as Lila steps in to save the warrior at the perfect moment. Yoshio smiles, watching the girls assist Lila, and marvels at the villagers' dedication. Although his fate points bottomed out after summoning the golem, they've already surged back to nearly 100 thanks to the villagers' overwhelming gratitude toward their god. With plans to send him monster meat from the recent attack, he anticipates another massive fate point boost from their upcoming offerings. Satisfied with the progress, he heads downstairs to enjoy some dinner and clear his mind. In the kitchen, Yoshio prepares the fridge for new groceries while searing meat in a pan, genuinely excited for the future. Just then, Saki returns home after a long late shift at work. The delicious aroma of the cooking meat immediately fills the air. He offers to whip up a serving for her as well, and she happily accepts. Thrilled by the scent, Yoshio quickly turns back to the stove to finish the meal. He hands Saki a plate of the mouth-watering, mysterious meat. Overjoyed, Saki thanks him and jokingly asks for a kiss as a reward, catching him off guard as he awkwardly holds her back. As they sit down, Yoshio realizes Saki reeks of alcohol and concludes that she's completely wasted. They share a quick thanks for the food and dig in, with Saki savoring every bite with pure delight. Yoshio mentions she's been late again and asks if she's doing okay, to which she claims her job is simple and fun. However, her expression quickly shifts as she looks down, visibly troubled. Yoshio offers to listen to her problems, reminding her that even though he isn't the perfect older brother, venting might help ease her worries. Saki reveals a chilling truth. She feels like she's being watched. She describes a recent trip to the local convenience store. There, she caught a mysterious man glaring at her from between the aisles. He vanished the moment they made eye contact, leaving her with the gut-wrenching certainty that she's being stalked. This trauma triggers a dark memory of a stalker from a decade ago, a monster who brutally attacked Yoshio when he stepped in to protect her. Yoshio admits the past has been weighing on him, especially with Saki returning home so late. While she's shocked by his concern, he firmly reminds her that he's still her big brother, regardless of his failures. They realize they both lived in fear of being hated by the other, trapped in a cycle of mutual misunderstanding. Saki beams, calling him big brother and noting that he's finally starting to act like his old heroic self. Caught off guard by her shy smile, Yoshio vows to pick her up whenever she's late, showing off the phone his mother gave him. They exchange numbers, and he promises to be her shield whenever she's in trouble. She pleads with him not to be reckless like he was in the past. He gives her his word, noticing that beneath her calm exterior, Saki is still trembling. Yoshio realizes she's terrified, and he resolves to be the protector she needs. This time, he refuses to fail. Later, Yoshio finishes his cleaning shift early, lost in thought as the van rolls through the city. He asks his boss to drop him off at the convenience store to run an errand. The crew says their goodbyes as the van disappears into the distance. As Yoshio heads toward the bus stop, he observes the weary workers and hoodlums loitering in the shadows. Cautious but resolute, he steps into the convenience store. As he grabs groceries, the chilling thought of Saki's stalker lurking nearby unsettles him. He knows all too well the crushing stress this puts on his sister. Memories of the day he was stabbed flood back, recalling the frantic rush to the hospital. Luckily, he escaped without lasting damage, though he remembers Saki's endless tears after the assault. The stalker was shipped off to reform school, later sending hollow apology letters to both Yoshio and Saki. To Yoshio, those letters were nothing more than empty, predictable lies. He never bothered to track the attacker's whereabouts after his release, nor did he want to. Yet he can't help but wonder why this nightmare is resurfacing now. On his way home, he spots a woman struggling to retrieve something from the pavement. She's leaning precariously, her left foot clearly injured and bandaged. She's desperately reaching for her dropped house keys. Approaching her, Yoshio realizes it's Seia and calls out to her. He steps in immediately, offering to pick up the keys for her. She offers her thanks, visibly stunned to see him out in the world. Seia is his childhood friend from next door, a constant presence since they were infants. Their unbreakable bond carried them through elementary school all the way to university. But while she landed her dream corporate job, he spiraled into the life of a shut-in. Even in his darkest years of isolation, she never stopped emailing or checking in on him. Consumed by shame over his lifestyle, he never once replied to her kindness. This marks their first face-to-face encounter in over a decade. After a heavy silence, he finally finds his voice. She brushes off her injury, cheerfully explaining she took a tumble down the stairs and had a co-worker drive her home. Yoshio warns her to stay sharp, noting that her legendary clumsiness hasn't changed. He recalls a childhood memory where Seia tried to mimic his tree-climbing skills, only to end up crashing down. Embarrassed, she begs him to bury that old story, and the two share a genuine laugh. Seia notices his work uniform, and he reveals he's been with a cleaning company for a month thanks to his father's referral. Just as he begins to feel the weight of shame over his job, Seia cuts him off, insisting it doesn't matter at all. She makes a heartfelt promise to always stand by his side and support him. This leaves Yoshio completely stunned and overflowing with gratitude. Noticing her blushing, he apologizes for keeping her out so long and suggests she head inside to rest. Despite the awkwardness, Seia expresses how happy she is that they finally reconnected. She offers a final thank you and a wave before disappearing into her house. As he walks away, Yoshio feels a surge of relief that their first talk in 10 years was a success. He's relieved his lifelong friend is still the same. But as he heads home, a shadow of self-doubt begins to creep in. He starts to wonder if she was merely being polite to match his low social standing. For 10 years, she has faced the world head-on, evolving into a sophisticated and mature woman. Meanwhile, he's only just started his journey, leaving her with far more life experience. Suddenly, the gap between their two worlds feels far too wide to bridge. Just as he hangs his head in shame, he hears Seia's voice calling out to him from her house. He quickly turns to answer her, noticing Seia's face flushing a deep crimson. She reveals news of a trendy new sweets cafe near the station, confessing she's too nervous to visit the youth-filled spot alone. She asks him to accompany her once her leg has fully recovered. To her delight, Yoshio agrees, admitting his own love for sweets as she promises to coordinate the details later. Heading home, Yoshio can't help but wonder if this outing with Seia qualifies as an actual date. He quickly suppresses the thought, convincing himself she simply requires a platonic companion. Shaking off the confusion of why she chose him, he shifts his focus back to the looming threat of Saki's mysterious stalker. The moment he enters the kitchen, his mother greets him with a knowing look. She immediately calls him out for the suspicious, goofy grin plastered across his face. A few days later, Yoshio prepares to spend his day off, fully immersed in the world of his game. With no sign of the stalker since the convenience store incident, he begins to suspect Saki might have imagined the whole ordeal. Regardless, next Sunday he's committed to being Seia's definitely not a date partner at the sweet shop. Now he must strategize on how to withstand the next trial from the evil god's temptation. While Gams possesses overwhelming strength, its massive drawbacks mean it must remain a desperate final trump card. Yoshio grows uneasy, realizing he cannot rely solely on Gams to safeguard the entire village. He considers spending points to recruit more warriors while weighing which miracle will maximize their survival. Suddenly, Gams looks down, his expression shifting to one of pure shock. He spots a familiar face and offers a joyful greeting to the village doctor. Yoshio hopes the doctor will officially join their ranks, though uncertainty lingers. The rest of the villagers swarm out of the cave, eager to welcome their returning friend. Carol gives the doctor a tight, emotional embrace. Looking down, Moss expresses his relief that everyone is safe, apologizing for running off on his own. Lila interrupts, noting he only stayed out of kindness, while Russ agrees, overjoyed by the reunion. Kem sees this moment as a divine sign from the god of fate. Watching the scene unfold, Yoshio smiles, impressed by how likable every village character is. Gams then offers his gratitude to Moss for providing silent support from the shadows. Yoshio realizes that if he noticed Moss, the veteran warrior certainly did as well. Maintaining a humble tone, the doctor apologizes once more for his perceived shortcomings. He drops to one knee, admitting he has no right to ask for a favor, yet he pleads for their assistance. Worried, Kem urges him to stand, reminding him of how he saved Gams from the poison. Her brother backs her up, insisting that his noble deeds deserve to be repaid in kind. Moss offers one final apology before making a monumental reveal. He brushes his hair aside to unveil a shocking physical trait. Two pointed ears appear as Moss confesses he belongs to a race from the Forbidden Forest. He admits he's been watching them since their arrival, leaving the entire group speechless. Yoshio's gaze turns cold and sharp as he identifies Moss for what he truly is, an elf. Kem asks if he knew the forest was tainted by the evil god's temptation, a fact Yoshio finds painfully obvious. Gams signals for her to calm down while Moss offers yet another sincere apology. He admits he suspected a threat, but the attack felt unnervingly organized and tactical. Gams agrees, noting that while monsters usually run wild, these creatures executed a perfectly planned strike. Russ notes that in all his travels as a peddler, he's never witnessed a village massacre this brutal. Turning the focus, Gams asks Moss what his true intentions are. Moss lifts his gaze and reveals the horrific truth. His entire village was annihilated by the evil god's temptation. This revelation leaves everyone, including Yoshio, completely paralyzed with shock. Moss explains that despite generations of forest survival and being battle-ready for raids, they were utterly crushed. He recounts a dying villager's words of a massive, coordinated assault where different monster species fought as a single unified army. Gams asks Moss if there were any other survivors left in the wreckage. Moss solemnly admits the witness died shortly after, leaving him as the sole survivor. The village is gone, but the body count tells a different story. 10 children are missing from the carnage. This discovery sparks a flicker of hope that the kids were abducted and taken to a monster nest. Yoshio can barely fathom the agony Moss endured, witnessing his home's ruin and personally counting the corpses of his kin. He reaches out to offer comfort to the trembling elf. Gams steps in, declaring that if the children are still alive, wasting time on grief is a luxury they don't have. He commands Moss to lead them to the site immediately. Kem rushes to arm herself while Riz, Layla, and Carol scramble to gather essential supplies for the rescue mission. As Gams consoles the grateful elf, Yoshio watches in awe of his villagers' unshakable resolve. With the team ready for war, Yoshio won't stand in their way, though he desperately wishes he could contribute more. Limited to one prophecy a day, he saves it for a dire emergency, realizing a golem would drain his fate points before reaching them. Gams prepares to depart with Moss and orders the others to stay behind, but Kem refuses to back down. She argues fiercely that her healing magic is vital if they hope to save the injured children. Her brother issues a stern warning about the impending danger. Unfazed, the priestess places her absolute trust in the god of fate, believing the Holy Scripture will guide them with divine prophecies as Yoshio leaves the final call to Gams. Gams voices his concern for his sister's safety, yet he knows stopping her is futile. She'd follow them regardless of his command. Carol approaches Gams, handing him a meaningful token. It's a small wooden carving of the god of fate, a symbol to keep her protection close to his heart. As he accepts the gift, Kem bids farewell to the villagers, while the search party finally departs. Rust and his family vow to protect the cave and prepare a feast for their triumphant return. With their resolve hardened, the group ventures into the dense woods under the midday sun. Moose knows exactly where the monster nest lies, and the destination is fast approaching. Meanwhile, Yoshio feels a surge of frustration, forced to watch the events unfold without being able to intervene directly. The group carves a path through the thick brush, working in unison to scale every obstacle in their way. Eventually, they emerge into a clearing beside a rushing stream. They decide it's time for a much-needed breather. As Kem rehydrates, Yoshio notes that an hour has already passed, worrying if the brutal terrain is pushing her to her limits. Moose pulls Gams aside to discuss their next move, still uncertain about the number of enemies lurking at the base. He surveys the grim scene, where the corpses of monsters and villagers alike are scattered across the forest floor. He believes his fallen comrades managed to thin the enemy ranks during their desperate final stand. Gams agrees that the surviving monsters are likely wounded, while the elf notes that unlike boars or dogs, the green goblins are known for taking live captives. This realization hits Yoshio hard. This is a high-stakes mission to save innocent children from a gruesome fate. He reminds himself that in a game this hyper-realistic, a tragic outcome is always a dark possibility. Ulyss raises his hand, signaling the group to come to a sudden halt. He presses a finger to his lips, demanding absolute silence. Crouching low, they creep toward the cliff's edge and spot the monster nest below. The nest consists of several straw huts, where Yoshio counts 9 green goblins at a glance. He warns that even with Gam's immense strength, facing so many foes at once is a massive risk. The Alpha remarks that without this clear sky, they could have slipped in and blindsided the enemy. Yoshio agrees that the bright weather is far from ideal for stealth, wishing he could summon a downpour. Suddenly remembering a feature, he scrolls through his menu and opens the Miracles tab to select weather control. He realizes that rain would mask their footsteps and kill visibility, allowing them to strike the monsters in their huts. As the god of fate, he scans the options, realizing the fate point cost depends on the chosen weather. Hesitating, he debates summoning torrential rain, as he's never tested this feature before. Finally, he makes his choice and selects the miracle. Yoshio sees that players can manually set the specific area for weather changes. He drags a circle across the screen with his mouse, adjusting the radius with the scroll wheel. He correctly assumes that a larger radius will drain more of his fate points. With a single click, the miracle triggers. A heavy downpour instantly drenches the village and the surrounding land. Just as predicted, the green goblins scramble into their huts for shelter. Ulyss comments on the incredibly convenient timing of the weather shift. However, Kem eagerly points out that the Bible glowed faintly as it happened. He suspects this is a divine blessing from the god of fate. As the rain pours down, Gams realizes this is the perfect moment to ambush the goblin camp. Shedding his heavy gear to move like a shadow, he ignores his sister's desperate pleas for him to stay safe. Armed with nothing but a lethal dagger, he and Moss venture into the darkness. The two split up upon infiltrating the camp, their footsteps muffled by the splashing rain. Gams approaches a hut, crouching low at the entrance like a predator. He pauses for a heartbeat to steady his nerves, closing his eyes to focus his killing intent. In a flash, he slips inside, his blade ready to strike. Muffled screams echo for a second before the monsters are silenced forever. Gams emerges from the hut, drenched in blood and wearing a cold, stern expression. He spots Moss exiting a neighboring hut. Gams signals to ask if the stolen children were inside. Moss shakes his head in grim disappointment, and the two resolve to press onward. As the silent slaughter continues, Yoshio observes that they've remained undetected, leaving only one mission: find and rescue the children. The rain begins to subside over the now silent village as the men coordinate their next move. Despite their thorough search, the children are nowhere to be found. They venture toward an ominous, uncharted cave with Gams leading the way. As he nears the cavernous entrance, the tension becomes palpable. He suddenly leaps back in shock, drawing his sword in a defensive stance. Kim asks what's happening, but Moss warns her to stay back immediately. Suddenly, a massive blood-red cyclops emerges from the depths of the cave. A massive club swings through the air with lethal force. Gams stares in disbelief at the fierce beast lurking in such an unexpected spot. But the cyclops wastes no time, swinging its club with violent intent. The blow lands squarely, sending him flying backward like a helpless doll. Kim and Yoshio watch the scene unfold in pure terror. Fortunately, Gams manages to draw his blade just in the nick of time. He uses the flat side of his sword to absorb the impact, flipping back to steady himself before facing the monster with unwavering resolve. Moss immediately fires an arrow directly at the beast. He aims for the Cyclops' eye, but the creature's insane reflexes allow it to swat the projectile away like a fly. Yoshio is left speechless by how easily the monster deflects the attack, marveling at the thickness of its hide as a stat screen suddenly flickers into view. The display reveals the terrifying truth about the red Cyclops. Related to ogres, these savage beings despise goblins and possess strength far beyond any normal hunter, fueled by a craving for human flesh. The monster lets out a blood-curdling roar, signaling the start of a massacre. Gams and Moss brace themselves for the fight of their lives. Yoshio watches, paralyzed by the overwhelming odds, wondering if his allies can even survive as the red Cyclops closes in on Gams. The beast raises its club for a killing blow, but Gams nimbly dodges, lunging forward with his longsword to strike at its head, only for the blade to leave a mere scratch on its iron-like skin. Watching the struggle, Yoshio realizes this red Cyclops is the most powerful adversary he has ever encountered. It's a foe far too formidable for Gams and Moss to handle alone. Gams continues to narrowly evade the onslaught, but Yoshio knows a single direct hit would leave him defenseless and doomed. From the sidelines, a worried Kim warns Moss that Gams cannot survive much longer at this relentless pace. Since standard arrows are useless against such a thick hide, the elf reaches for a vial of deadly secret family poison, a toxin so potent that no victim has ever survived. Morris sees a sliver of hope if he can strike the Cyclops with a poisoned arrow, though he doubts he can pierce its thick hide. Lacking better options, Yoshio clutches his head in frustration, regretting his failure to bring the powerful wooden golem along. Now Yoshio must choose between a prophetic warning or a miracle using the items on hand: Morris's poison, the Bible, and Gams's pouch. He considers a prophecy to help them flee, but realizes the red Cyclops would catch them. The only sure plan is a desperate distraction. Sweating with anxiety, Yoshio mutters to himself that these characters are just NPCs in a digital world. He tries to convince himself that their deaths shouldn't matter in the grand scheme of the game. Yet his trembling hands prove he can no longer treat their lives as mere lines of code. He rejects the cold logic, vowing that everyone must survive because a game you can't win isn't worth playing. He scours the Miracles tab, hunting for any combination of powers to flip the script on this nightmare. Suddenly, a spark of inspiration hits him, and he wonders if this insane gamble might actually work. He frantically hammers his keyboard as the clock ticks down. Inside the game, the Bible in Kem's bag begins to glow with divine light. She declares they've received wisdom from the god of fate, as Yoshio summons a thunderstorm and narrows its focus. Meanwhile, Gams barely evades another strike, slumping against his sword in a state of total exhaustion. The Cyclops towers over him, its massive club raised high to crush the life out of the weary warrior. Just as the blow is about to land, Yoshio unleashes the full fury of the storm. A violent lightning bolt screams from the heavens, frying the beast with divine electricity. The massive red Cyclops is left scorched, smoking and dazed by the impact. Gams and Yoshio watch the screen in absolute shock at the results of the intervention. However, their hearts sink as they realize the monster is still standing despite the direct hit. Now everything rests on Morris, who notches a poisoned arrow and takes aim at the stunned behemoth. "Aim for the mouth!" The elf releases a perfect shot as Yoshio lets out a primal roar. However, the quick Cyclops manages to intercept the projectile with its massive club. Yoshio spits a sarcastic curse before immediately unveiling his true master plan. He triggers a golem summoning using a small wooden totem of the god of fate. This figure, a gift from Carol, is strapped to the arrow alongside a poison vial, and as the miracle activates, the carving surges with life. It breaks free of its restraints, clutching the lethal poison in its tiny arms. The golem leaps onto the Cyclops club with incredible agility. It dives headfirst into the beast's gaping maw and is swallowed whole. The monster begins to choke violently while the villagers watch on with exhausted expressions. This was all part of Yoshio's brilliant strategy. He instructed the villagers to wait for his thunderstorm to stun the beast before firing into its open mouth. Knowing a simple arrow wouldn't suffice, he secretly attached the statue and the poison vial to the shaft. The Cyclops claws at its throat as the golem and vial lodge inside, while a furious Yoshio declares the monster's time is up. Using his controller, he commands the golem to shatter the vial, flooding the beast's system with toxin until its eyes go dull. It coughs up a spray of dark blood. The massive creature finally collapses to the earth with a deafening thud. Back in his room, Yoshio celebrates wildly, ecstatic that his gamble paid off. He wishes he could personally thank Gams, Moose, and the priestess and celebrate their victory together. But his duty as their prophet is finished for now, and the group shifts their focus to the cave to rescue the children. Gams steps up to take command once more, volunteering to scout the cave for any remaining threats. Moss nods in silent agreement. Gams slips into the cave alone while the others wait with bated breath. After a tense silence, he finally emerges from the darkness. Kem greets him warmly, but her smile vanishes as she notices her brother's grim expression. Gams instructs Moss to investigate the cave but demands that Kem stay outside. Kem protests, insisting she's prepared to face whatever horrors lie within. But Gams stands firm as her older brother, refusing to let her witness the carnage. The priestess is forced to wait behind. When Gams and Moss finally exit, their faces are masks of pure devastation. Moss collapses to his knees, his spirit completely shattered by grief. Fighting through the agony, he thanks Kem and Gams for their unwavering support. The warrior tells him to hold his head high, mourning the fact that they couldn't save anyone. Meanwhile, Yoshio finds himself wiping tears from his own face. Watching the villagers' raw sorrow is becoming more than he can handle. As his own tears fall, Kem approaches Moss to ask for permission to pray for the fallen. She wants the victims to find peace, and the heartbroken elf gives her his blessing. Yoshio watches the tragic scene unfold as darkness swallows the landscape. He watches them bury the children, realizing this game refuses to skip these brutal moments. The Village of Fate is clearly no ordinary simulation. In this world, every life and every death is tragically real. Moss, Kim, and Gans linger briefly over the fresh graves. The priestess approaches the elf, urging Moss to return to their village for the time being. Gans reinforces the offer, noting that the entire village is deeply concerned for his well-being. Moss slowly rises and agrees, providing the siblings with a much-needed moment of relief. As night falls, Russ and his family witness the group returning with expressions of pure despair. Carol rushes forward to welcome them back. Moss pulls her into a tight emotional embrace. Gans solemnly shakes his head, signaling to Russ that they failed to save the children. Isla desperately tries to soothe a tearful Kim, struggling to lift the heavy atmosphere. Russ commends their bravery and heads off to prepare a meal for the exhausted group. Through his own tears, Yoshio reminds them that they did everything humanly possible. Layla warmly offers Moss a permanent place to stay, a gesture he accepts with humble gratitude. Watching him, Yoshio wonders what Moss will decide, hoping he stays as a friend despite his hidden thoughts. Observing the elf's hollow gaze, Yoshio vows not to force him to stay if he chooses a life of solitude. He simply prays that Moss finds a way to heal, regardless of the path he takes. Suddenly, Moss stands atop a jagged cliff, staring down at the forest with tear-filled, vacant eyes. With his will to live shattered, the elf steps into the abyss and plunges toward his demise. Yoshio jolts awake in a sheer state of panic. He realizes it was only a nightmare as the morning sun begins to rise. He immediately rushes to his computer to check on Moss's status. He feels a wave of relief finding the boy sitting alone in his room. Musa is safe but clearly troubled, his face etched with a dark distress that makes Yoshio fear the absolute worst. During breakfast in the main cave, Ken points out that Musa hasn't emerged from his quarters at all. The group wonders if the boy is starving himself in his grief. A heavy, serious silence hangs over everyone present. After a quick glance at his wife, Roos informs their daughter about Musa's absence as they continue their meal in somber quiet. Yoshio understands that Musa simply needs more time to recover from his trauma. He begins to wonder if there's a special trick he can perform to lift the spirits of the villagers. While browsing his options, he discovers a new feature called the Egg Gacha. This rare monthly event offers a free pull for a chance to win anything from a reptilian egg to a legendary monster egg. Once hatched, the creature becomes a fiercely loyal companion to whoever it sees first, serving as either a pet or a vital resource. A bird could provide a steady supply of food, while a reptile could serve as a valuable companion for the group. If it's a monster, they can train it for battle, which would be a massive advantage if it's a rare species. Thrilled by the possibility and the 0-point cost, the young man decides to take a gamble without a second thought. He activates the gacha and watches the machine spin, realizing he couldn't predict the contents based on appearance anyway. He hits the stop button, and the gacha slows down to reveal a plain white egg. It is far too elongated to belong to a common chicken. The game confirms his prize and notifies him that the egg will manifest near the village. Sure enough, the mysterious egg appears at the base of a tree just outside the palisade. He immediately moves to protect the camp, refusing to leave the egg unattended. Yoshio chooses to unveil the truth to the villagers through a cryptic prophecy. Shortly after, Kim opens her holy book and recites the mysterious prophecy aloud. She reveals the existence of the egg, leaving its ultimate fate in their hands. Moments later, Carol returns to the cave, proudly clutching the egg to show her parents. She suggests transforming the prize into a delicious meal. However, her mother immediately objects. She explains that despite the prophecy's freedom of choice, this egg is extraordinary. Viewing it as a divine gift worthy of respect, she gazes at it in awe, and Carol quickly understands. She rushes to the altar of the fate god, offering her thanks and placing the egg upon it. She pleads for him to watch over it, and as the egg begins to vanish, Yoshio recognizes the signature glow of a divine offering. Shocked that the girl has sent the egg directly to him, a panicked Layla dashes to the altar, kneeling in apology for Carol's actions and insisting she meant no harm. Yoshio is stunned by the turn of events, learning the egg will manifest in his world the very next day. Fearing it might be dangerous to eat, he decides to hatch it instead, wondering what creature lies inside. He scours the internet for answers, concluding that the shell most closely resembles a reptile. Even though he has zero experience with cold-blooded creatures, he begins to suspect this is a genuine monster egg, given its mystical origins in the village of fate. But he quickly shakes off the worry, dismissing the thought as pure fantasy. He convinces himself it's likely just a harmless lizard or snake to keep as a pet, with his family's reaction being his only real concern. The following day, his mother announces a delivery, and he notices the package is marked as containing a live animal rather than groceries. He opens the box and informs his mother that it's an egg. He mentions it might be a reptile, prompting her to immediately question his motives. She asks if he's raising a lizard just to impress Saki. Yoshio and his father share a deep obsession with reptiles, a passion that clearly runs in their blood. He learns his father was a lizard enthusiast back in his bachelor days, eventually passing the torch to the rest of the family. Surprisingly, his sister Saki is a reptile lover too, but Yoshio was clueless since he hasn't stepped foot in her room for a decade. As his mother continues to ramble, he's left stunned by how he managed to overlook this massive detail about his own sister. Driven by curiosity and a desire to bond, Yoshio decides to seek Saki's expert advice the moment she returns home. During dinner, he finally brings up the subject, seeking guidance from both her and his father. He explains that the village sent him these eggs as part of a revitalization project, tasking him with raising them. Thrilled by the news, Saki and his father immediately agree to share their knowledge and supplies. After the meal, they rush to Yoshio's room to inspect the egg, marveling at its reptilian texture and armored shell. They speculate on its species, firing off technical questions that leave Yoshio completely baffled. They quickly gather the tools needed to construct a custom reptile enclosure. In no time at all, the professional setup is complete. They carefully place the mysterious egg inside. They snap photos to document the process. They demand constant updates and tell Yoshio to alert them the second it begins to hatch. As they leave, Yoshio realizes just how lucky he is to have two reptile experts under the same roof. It might seem like a coincidence, but the Village of Fate has been strengthening their family bonds day by day. He even begins to wonder if a literal god of fate is watching over them. A few days later, he nervously adjusts his jacket in the mirror before heading out. His mother teases him about finally going on a date. She's stunned when he confirms it, but Yoshio rushes off before revealing the mystery girl's identity. He arrives at Sei's house and finds that her leg is now fully healed. Together, they head to the sweets cafe they had planned to visit. Realizing it's a popular spot for couples, he feels a surge of joy seeing his friend so happy. After some back and forth, Sei admits she's been checking in on him through his mother. She's noticed his cheerful spirit return since he began aiding the village, and her curiosity is piqued. Yoshio panics, fearing she'll lose interest if he admits his mission is just a game, a world tied to microtransactions that he works tirelessly to afford. Furthermore, the game's strict rules forbid him from sharing details, risking his divine position. He refuses to lie to Sei, however, so he chooses to share his raw, genuine emotions instead. Keeping the game a secret, he describes a small remote village with scarce resources, a place where dangerous wild animals roam the outskirts. He explains that while the village's growth will take time, the people are incredibly kind, forming a tight-knit community where everyone plays a vital role. They are all working their hardest to build a future. He confesses that witnessing their struggles inspired him to take action and give back. Sei sees how deeply he cares for these villagers and feels a sense of uplifted wonder. He continues to share stories of their lives as they walk home together. She thanks him for the company, while he thanks her for treating him to the meal. The two share a playful squabble at the counter. Laughing it off, Yoshio offers to cover their next outing. They both agree to meet up again very soon. Once back home, Yoshio enters his room and suddenly senses an eerie presence. Wondering if he's truly alone, he rolls up a manga magazine like a weapon. He frantically scans every corner, finding nothing at first. Just as he begins to think it was all in his head, he hears distinct cracking noises echoing from the reptilian egg. He spins around just as the shell begins to shatter, wondering what kind of creature is about to emerge. Panic sets in as Yoshio witnesses the egg splitting wide open. He desperately scrambles to find his sister's research notes. However, he fails to locate them before the shell completely disintegrates. Suddenly, a mysterious golden lizard crawls out from the wreckage. The creature locks its gaze directly onto him. Yoshio freezes in place, relieved that it isn't some horrific monster. He watches the creature play in its tank, finding it surprisingly adorable. He decides then and there to nurture it with the utmost care. He quickly snaps a photo of the lizard to send to his sister and father. He then dives online, desperate to identify this mysterious golden species. While he finds similar creatures, none possess the same radiant metallic gold luster as this one. He commands the lizard to remain in its tank, captivated by its charm, as the evening rolls in. Suddenly, Yoshio's mother calls him downstairs to join the family for dinner. As he descends the stairs, he feels the lizard's intense gaze tracking his every move. Stepping into the kitchen, he immediately senses a heavy atmosphere, and his sister snaps at him for ignoring her texts. Confused by her sudden outburst, he recalls sending a photo of the lizard to ask her about its mysterious species. After offering a quick apology, she points. She makes it clear she wanted to see the creature the moment she stepped through the door. Yielding to her demands, Yoshio promises to bring the lizard down immediately. He rushes back to his room to fetch it, but as he opens the door, he's stunned to find the lizard waiting in the hall. He has no idea how it managed to escape its enclosure. Carefully scooping it up, he carries the golden creature back to his sister. But just as she reaches for it, their mother intervenes, ordering them back to the table so their father isn't kept waiting. She insists they focus on their meal first, leaving the lizard for later. Once dinner concludes, the family gathers in Yoshio's room, where Saki stands breathless at the lizard's stunning golden glow. She notes that no such species exists in Japan, though her father dismisses it as a mere curiosity. Its razor-sharp scales bear a striking resemblance to those of a rare armadillo lizard. Saki questions its diet, and Yoshio explains that it already feasted on the fruit sent by the villagers. His father then asks if the villagers provided any clues regarding the creature's true identity. Yoshio skillfully evades the question, doubling down on his cover story about the village revitalization project. He claims they've bred a new species through selective cultivation to create unique local specialties, then urges them to keep the lizard a total secret. Regarding its diet, he mentions the villagers need him to determine what else it eats, and if it can adapt to a domestic environment. Eventually, his family retreats to their rooms, leaving him in total isolation, a stark contrast to their usual habit of ignoring his open door. Realizing they'll likely barge in to see the lizard now, he decides it's vital to keep his monitor powered down whenever he's away. Back in the village of fate, Carol rests peacefully as Russ reflects on Mew's deep-seated loneliness following the destruction of their home. Lila concurs, noting their limited ability to help, while Kim offers her brother heartfelt words of hope for a swift recovery. Meanwhile, she expresses a solemn desire to Gan to visit the graves of the children from Ulsa's village and offer her prayers once more. Gan proposes they make the journey together once Memphis has finally regained his strength. Nearby, an elf named Mouse remains completely consumed by an overwhelming sense of grief. He pulls a book from his satchel, questioning the very deity that the text represents. He demands to know why his god abandoned them while the god of fate continues to provide salvation. Yoshio identifies the book as a sacred text and realizes it contains the core tenets that the god's followers must uphold. He notes that while Kim possesses the rare ability to write within its pages, divine blessings are viewed as literal miracles in this world. Having witnessed a miracle firsthand, Mouse feels betrayed by his own gods, leading Yoshio to realize the vulnerability of the villagers in his absence. He fears that, much like the silent gods of the elves, he'll be unable to protect the village if disaster strikes during his shift. Since he works several days a week, any sudden attack would leave him completely powerless to intervene. Though he briefly considers returning to his life as a shut-in, he refuses to throw away the fresh start he's fought so hard for. He desperately wishes for a way to monitor the village while on the clock, though he sees no immediate solution. Suddenly, a notification for a connection system appears, offering a mobile app that allows him to play the game anywhere on his smartphone. Never having owned a smartphone, he's stunned by its convenience and quickly installs the app. Once it launches, he discovers he can orchestrate miracles and prophecies right from his phone. Though restricted during work, he can manage the world during breaks, which eases his worries. That night, Yoshio returns home, absolutely exhausted from his cleaning job. He's immediately startled to see the lizard already eating its fill. Guessing his mother fed it, he ignores his own hunger to check on the village first. The villagers are all gathered in the common room when the guest arrives. Musk finally steps out into the open. He offers a deep apology for causing everyone so much concern. He reveals that after much thought, he wants to officially join their community. Musk admits he considered leaving to find lost comrades, but the unknown world is daunting. He is completely unfamiliar with the world outside the forest's edge. This village is his only home. He bows and pleads to stay, followed by a heavy silence. The villagers warmly embrace him, thrilled to have a new member in their ranks. Watching Musk tremble with emotion, Yoshio is struck by how wonderful these people truly are. A pop-up notification confirms that Mouse has officially settled into the village. The stats window appears, and Yoshio is stunned to see Mouse is actually 151 years old. He's even more shocked to discover that Mouse is actually female. Despite her androgynous beauty, he assumes she was male, but realizes she never once said she was. He wonders how Kim will react to a girl who hunts with such legendary skill. Putting that aside, Yoshio feels that gaining an extra villager is a fantastic addition to his community. He sincerely hopes everyone can coexist peacefully with the others moving forward. Suddenly, his phone erupts, pulling him away from the screen as he realizes his sister is calling. Her voice is thick with terror as she begs him to come to her location immediately. She explains that after stepping off the bus, she felt a sinister presence trailing her every move. Terrified, she managed to duck into a nearby convenience store to hide. She fears the stalker might be the same monster who stabbed Yoshio years ago. Yoshio instantly springs into action, urging Saki to remain calm and stay put. He charges out of the house, strictly commanding her not to leave the store's safety. As he departs, his in-game lizard companion watches him go with a lingering gaze. Yoshio tears through the streets on his bike, jaw clenched in a fit of protective rage. Breathing heavily, he weaves through traffic toward the store where his sister has sought refuge. Screeching to a halt, he frantically scans the area, searching for any sign of the predator. His primary focus, however, is finding his sister and ensuring she's safe. He storms inside and finds her cowering in an aisle, visibly paralyzed by fear. Seeing her trembling and broken as he grabs her arm ignites a fire within him. Haunted by his own past trauma, Yoshio decides to hunt down the man lurking outside. He orders her to stay behind, ignoring her desperate pleas for him to stay by her side. 10 minutes later, he returns, frustrated that a thorough search yielded no sign of anyone matching Saki's description. Overwhelmed with guilt, Saki tearfully apologizes for dragging him out, questioning her own sanity. Saki nearly collapses, but her brother steadies her, gripping her shoulders to offer comfort. He makes a silent vow. That stalker will not escape justice. Later, as Yoshio heads off to work, Saki messages him to confirm their father is picking her up. Ever since the incident, they've been escorting her from the bus stop, but this Band-Aid solution doesn't fix the underlying threat. Checking his phone, he opens the Village of Fate app and sees Muse suggesting the group visit her former village tomorrow. Yoshio and the villagers are baffled, but the elf explains that despite the destruction, vital supplies, food, and artifacts still remain buried within the elven ruins. Gams hesitates, but Muse insists they need these resources, claiming her fallen people would want their avengers to use them. Carol immediately jumps at the chance to join the expedition, shocking her overprotective parents. She's sick of being sidelined and left to guard the house, especially when her brother gets to go despite his lack of combat skill. Carol demands to be part of the party as well. Gams surprisingly agrees to her request, noting that she's young and rightfully frustrated by living life cooped up behind fences and in caves. However, Can protests, fearing the journey is far too dangerous. Gams reassures them that the area is secure now that the invaders have been crushed. He adds that leaving Carol behind alone would be even riskier, though Can remains skeptical. But her brother quietly mentions that Lus and his wife will join if she goes, hoping a change of scenery will heal their spirits. Yoshio notices that Gantz has stepped up as the village's true guardian, constantly prioritizing their survival over everything else. Since the fallen in Moose Village are already buried, the site offers nothing but grim silence. Gantz suggests taking the horse and the village's only intact wagon to maximize their haul of supplies. Back in reality, Yamamoto catches Yoshio on his phone and asks if he's playing a new game, causing a startled Yoshio to kill the screen. Noticing his coworker looks absolutely miserable today, Yoshio asks what's weighing on him. Yamamoto opens up, explaining his obsession with a strategy simulator where players seize enemy territory. He spent his entire day off grinding to take down a massive base, only for one of his own outposts to get raided immediately after. Yamamoto admits he dropped a fortune to power up, but it all went up in smoke, draining half his monthly salary on a single wrecked base. Yoshio feels his pain instantly, thinking of the massive sums he's poured into the Village of Fate as they bond over their shared gacha misery. The next day arrives, and Yoshio watches over the villagers as they finalize preparations for the trek to Moose. The path to Moose Village is treacherous, crossing a river and cutting through a forest near a dark cave. With the bridge destroyed, They're forced to take the long way downstream to find a shallow crossing and scale the far bank. As they march forward, Yoshio monitors the map from his godlike vantage point, scanning for any lurking threats. He's grateful that having Mouse as a villager grants him vision of every location she's ever visited. Thanks to the elf's previous travels, Yoshio can now peer deep into the mysterious forbidden forest. He makes it a habit to scout out unexplored areas that the crew hasn't even reached yet. Even so, the true scale and layout of this massive forest remain a total enigma. Meanwhile, Caroline treats the adventure like a fairy tale, role-playing as a princess protected by her gallant knight, Gantz. Gantz humors her antics, while Kem fumes with quiet rage in the background. Her jealousy over her brother boils over as they finally close in on their destination. Upon arrival, Yoshio scrutinizes the charred ruins, searching for any lingering threats. The settlement is a blackened husk, though he hopes some supplies remain hidden within. Suddenly he spots a group amidst the wreckage. Not survivors, but armed strangers. A middle-aged man leads a band of classic adventurers, though their voices are lost to the distance. Without the Bible nearby, Yoshio is unable to eavesdrop on their conversation. He knows his divine miracles require proximity, making him contemplate sending a prophecy to warn the others. However, he hesitates to burn his daily limit, especially since these newcomers don't seem hostile yet. Mouse, ever vigilant, senses an anomaly and orders Russ and his family to stay back. Despite the risks, the group pushes forward as Gams detects movement in the shadows. He urges Kim to take cover while Mouse confirms they definitely have company. With weapons drawn, they charge toward the potential threat with lethal intent. The elf levels her bow at the strangers, demanding to know why they've trespassed in her village. The adventurers shield their leader until Mouse suddenly freezes in shock. She identifies the man as Dold, a face she recognizes instantly. Recognizing the elf in return, Dold commands his party to lower their weapons immediately. Tensions simmer down as he explains he rushed over after hearing rumors of the village's destruction. He's visibly relieved she's alive, convincing Yoshio they're allies while Mouse reassures the panicked villagers. Dold is revealed to be a regular traveling merchant, moved to tears by the sight of their struggle. He offers a fair trade for their salvaged goods before they prepare to return to the cave. Russ happily accepts the deal while Yoshio continues to carefully observe the scene. He watches as the villagers scavenge the ruins for vital supplies and trade goods. Though anxious at first, he's thrilled to see the plan working, feeling like he's earned a massive bonus. Checking the Miracle tab, he realizes a spell from 3 days ago just activated, proving that some miracles wait for the perfect moment to strike. As the wagons are loaded, Ken requests a final prayer for the fallen souls of Muse Village. The survivors join hands, bowing before the silent graves. They offer a heartfelt plea for their eternal peace. After this emotional farewell, the group begins the trek back to the safety of the cave. Feeling secure in their numbers, Yoshio steps away to grab a quick snack. But when he returns, he's stunned to find the lizard has escaped its tank and claimed his desk. The creature cocks its head toward the meat platter, clearly demanding a cut of the meal. Yoshio shares his food with the reptile before shifting his focus back to the screen. Deep inside the cavern, Doldy praises the village's strategic location and the incredible talents of its people. He calls them the ultimate residents, while Russ stands frozen by the merchant's massive payout. The merchant explains the bonus is an investment, sensing god-tier potential in those favored by the god of fate. He offers both gold and barter options, leaving Russ overwhelmed with gratitude. Carol's father then asks the merchant to scout for more people, specifically anyone brave enough to settle in their new village. The merchant nods, noting that recent chaos has left many refugees desperate for a safe haven. However, he warns that the Forbidden Forest is anything but peaceful, urging Yoshio to consider their next move. He finds the idea sensible, knowing that leaving the forest won't end the game. However, Yoshio senses that moving to another village might violate the game's core rules. He wonders if their success elsewhere counts as a victory, deciding their happiness outweighs his desire to keep playing. No matter their choice, he vows to support them without manipulating them through a prophecy. Russ speaks up, declaring his firm desire to stay. He views life on land, guarded by the god of fate, as a divine mission, while his wife remains committed to his side. Carol also expresses her wish to stay with the group. Ken plans to spend the rest of her days there, while Gam vows to protect everyone. Unfamiliar with the outside world, she refuses to abandon the land where her brothers perished. The merchant respects their resolve and pledges to recruit others to join the village. Shaking hands with Russ, he promises to return within days with the necessary supplies. This leaves Yoshio feeling incredibly grateful for their decision to remain. Yoshio sends a new prophecy as the Bible glows, prompting the villagers to gather. They open it to read aloud, welcoming the newcomers on behalf of the god of fate, while honoring the fallen. With this, Yoshio steps back from his desk, confident they are prepared for winter and future growth. Turning to his lizard companion, he asks what name it prefers. He first suggests Lyserdosaurus, a name the creature clearly hates. He then proposes Destiny as a tribute to their shared journey. In the Village of Fate, a golden lizard rises with newfound energy while Yoshio sits alone in his room. He lets out a deep sigh as he stares intently at his smartphone. Yoshio finally reaches out to see after years of total silence. He's genuinely thrilled to reconnect, yet he's paralyzed by the fear of losing her again. It all started a decade ago when C secured a prestigious position at a major corporation. Consumed by envy after his own job hunt failed, Yoshio severed all ties and vanished from her life entirely. Now guilt eats at him as he wonders if a failure like him even deserves to speak with her. He's desperate to maintain this bond, but he has no idea how to bridge the gap. He struggles to maintain even the simplest conversation with anyone outside his family. In his desperation, he wishes Gams could teach him the secret to connecting with others. Back in the village, Carol approaches a warrior, her curiosity mirroring the others. She is surprised to learn that he's out on a hunt alongside Gams. She offers her best wishes, and he responds with a casual pat on the head. Yoshio dismisses the move, convinced only Chads can pull off a head pat without it being weird, before turning to Russ for a mature perspective. Russ is busy drafting a trade manifest for Doll, clearly energized by the return of commerce. Layla views this as a divine sign that her husband needs to stop overexerting himself. However, Russ feels an intense pressure to match the incredible work ethic of Gams. It stings Russ to feel so useless at his age, a sentiment Yoshio understands perfectly as he compares himself to Gams. He watches as Russ pushes his limits with grueling physical labor he's not used to. Russ even confesses his deep-seated fear that Gams might steal Carol away. His wife playfully teases him, claiming that it's already too late for that. But she quickly reassures him, reminding him that he will always have her by his side. Consumed by jealousy and lacking guidance, Yoshio realizes he needs an expert to help him win a woman's heart. He knows his sister would only mock his desperation. His gaming friends are useless hermits, and he suddenly realizes he hasn't sent the daily prophecy yet. With no actual news to share, he decides to use the prophecy for his own personal gain. Back in the village, Kem announces a brand new divine prophecy to the gathered crowd. She reveals that the god of fate is seeking their counsel regarding a young believer's romantic struggles. The god confesses that human love is a mystery even to him, leaving the villagers stunned by this bizarre request. Yoshio immediately panics, fearing he went too far with such an ungodly message. He feels absolutely ridiculous for seeking romantic guidance from a group of video game characters, yet they are the only ones he can truly turn to. Carol is thrilled by the consultation and is eager to offer her wisdom. As a debate breaks out over who should speak, Layla steps in to remind everyone of their god's humble request. They see this as the perfect opportunity to finally repay him for his divine protection. While Merce grumbles that an elf like her knows nothing of romance, Yoshio notices the women are surprisingly fired up to help. Kem provides more details, explaining that the man has a childhood friend who is far more than just a companion. Layla begins to tease the man, suggesting he might eventually grow bored after being together for so long. Once Alice puts an end to the bickering, Kem clarifies that the pair was separated for years, and now the man is desperate to reclaim their lost bond. Carol instantly volunteers, boasting about her massive popularity with the local men. This is a far cry from Kim, whose bold attitude usually scares people off. Carol suggests he should simply ask his friend out, arguing that their history makes it a safe move. She claims that if it fails, it was a lost cause anyway, so there's no harm in trying. These words sting Yash as he reads the advice online. She believes that genuine fun bridges the distance between people far better than stiff conversations. Layla backs this up, recalling how her husband's first date invitation sparked their entire romance. The memory causes Russ to turn bright red with shyness. The elf shares that her kind takes years to nurture love, making her a poor example for bold steps. Yoshio looks back on his history with Saki, realizing just how much the vibe has shifted. He wonders what kind of date would even be appropriate for people his age. He questions if Saki would even want to go on a date at all. Layla adds that it's charming when a man tries too hard to be gallant, even if he messes up. Yoshio wants to match the villagers' enthusiasm, but the idea of a date feels impossible. Taking the collective advice to heart, Yoshio finally grabs his phone. After debating how to ask Saki out, he settles on a simple, direct invitation. He clutches his phone with bated breath, hoping he didn't blow it. At a nearby cafe, Saki sees the notification and a smile graces her face. Much to Yasha's shock, her reply comes back almost instantly. He panics upon realizing he asked her out on a weekday, exposing his lack of social awareness. Despite the blunder, he feels relieved that she's open to the idea, giving him the courage to try again. The next morning, Layla, Kim, and Carol are busy washing clothes outside the cave. The priestess ponders the previous day's prophecy, convinced the god of fate is toying with his followers. She asks for an update on the man's situation, prompting Yoshio to finally reveal the outcome. Yoshio fabricates a few details and offers his sincere gratitude to the group. Suddenly, the Bible begins to emit a radiant glow. Sam opens the book, noting their advice ensured the man's next date would be a success. Watching from his world, Yoshio is moved by the villagers' intense passion for his personal struggles. It reminds him of his mother and Saki becoming completely obsessed with their favorite TV dramas. He realizes these people crave excitement after spending their lives solely focused on survival. Having never experienced entertainment before, it makes sense that they're totally captivated by his story. Though he's hesitant to expose his own romantic inexperience, he decides to keep the momentum going. The very next day, he delivers another love prophecy to the eager villagers. He explains that the man has a date with his childhood friend, but has no clue where to take her, seeking their advice on the perfect spot. Ken spreads the news and suggests the man take her to the theater for a classic experience. Lila finds it adorable, recalling her own first date with Russ at a theater. The dim lighting and romantic atmosphere were pure magic. Carol and the rest of the villagers enthusiastically back the idea. Yoshio agrees that a movie is the perfect choice, especially since night is already falling. He figures his crush is heading home and prepares himself for the moment of truth. He vows to follow the villagers' advice to ensure they aren't disappointed, intending to give them a full update later. She answers his call, sounding genuinely surprised to hear from him. Stealing his resolve, Yoshio finally musters the courage to ask her out on her next day off. The following day, Kim reads the latest prophecy aloud. Yoshio thanks the villagers, reporting that the young man's bond with his friend is stronger than ever. With the dating advice concluded, he's grateful for their support, yet feels a sharp pang of regret about returning to his mundane reality. He hopes life remains this positive, wishing for the village to prosper so his prophecies stay peaceful. Donning his overalls, he sets out to earn money for the village and his upcoming date. He's filled with adrenaline as he steps out into the wider world. One night, Yoshio returns home after a long day of work. He receives a text from Saki asking him to pick her up late from the bus stop. He agrees instantly, planning to raid the nearby convenience store for snacks while he waits. He heads toward the store, grabbing his backpack on the way out. All the while, Destiny watches his every move. The sound of a vehicle pulling up echoes through the night. He walks over, deciding to duck inside the shop before his sister arrives. But he freezes dead in his tracks at the entrance. He spots a familiar, haunting figure leaving the store. A sharp phantom pain pierces his stomach as a dark memory floods back. Years ago, his sister complained about a stalker, and he had stepped up to confront the creep. He was shocked to find the stalker looked like an ordinary kid. Attempting to intimidate him, Yoshio demanded the boy stay away from Saki. Infuriated by the boy's silence, Yoshio grabbed him by the collar. The kid mumbled an incoherent threat before suddenly stabbing him in the gut. He used a lethal butterfly knife to deliver the blow. As Yoshio collapsed and bled out, the kid glared with wild eyes, warning him to stay out of his way. This leaves Yoshio completely powerless to protect his sister. Spotting the stalker in his hometown isn't a shock, but the location is chilling. Running into him at the exact convenience store Saki uses is far too coincidental to be luck. Yoshio is certain this man is back to hunt his sister down. He considers calling the police, but remembers their useless refusal to act until a crime actually happens. Time is running out. Saki's bus is scheduled to arrive at any moment. He refuses to let her face this predator alone or live another second in constant fear. Stealing his resolve, he steps outside to confront the threat head-on. He spots two young men in the parking lot planning to scream for help if a fight breaks out. He prepares himself for the worst should things escalate. His heart pounds as he closes the distance and approaches the suspected stalker. He calls out the man's name, and the stranger turns, looking confused by Yoshio's presence. Getting straight to the point, Yoshio brings up the man's history with his sister's case. Sudden realization hits the man like a truck. This is Saki's older brother. Yoshio offers a tense greeting, scrutinizing the man's reaction for any sign of hostility. Unexpectedly, the man expresses deep regret, offering a stunning apology that leaves Yoshio speechless. He begs for forgiveness, admitting that his past behavior was reckless and completely thoughtless. The man confesses that stalking Saki and harming her brother are sins that are truly beyond forgiveness. He claims he is there to make amends, but Yoshio can only think of the massive trauma he's caused. Yoshio bites his tongue as the man explains he's only there because it's the only shop open after his shift. From their conversation, Yoshio Naga appears to be a gentle soul, making the disheveled Yoshio look like the actual stalker. After a cold apology for the surprise, Yoshio delivers a stern warning: stay away from his sister. Feigning regret, Naga claims his past obsession was a mistake and insists he hasn't approached her since his release. But Yoshio cuts through the lies to ask why he's still following her. As the young man acts shocked, Yoshio plays his hand by bringing up the restraining order. He claims this is the second time he's spotted him, citing the store incident as a total bluff. Yoshio isn't entirely certain of the timing, but his gut tells him he's hit the mark. The gamble pays off instantly as Naga's polite mask shatters, realizing he's been exposed. He screams that his time in reform school was a lie, shouting that he was only waiting for her when Yoshio's interference drove him to violence. Seizing Yoshio by the hair, he bellows that the siblings are the ones who destroyed his life. Witnessing the man's pure insanity, Yoshio commands him to leave Saki alone once and for all. However, the stalker remains undeterred, refusing to let go of his twisted fixation. When Yoshio threatens him with the law, Naga merely scoffs, boasting that reform school taught him how to commit untraceable crimes with the help of new, dangerous allies. Terrified, Yoshio demands to know what he actually wants from his sister. The answer is chilling. It's all for love, claiming his shy nature prevented a confession years ago. During his time behind bars, he obsessed over their eventual reunion, oscillating between seeking her forgiveness and redemption. He once considered vanishing to let her be happy, but as the isolation dragged on, his soul rotted. Now his fantasies are dark and depraved. He dreams of seeing her on her knees, weeping and pleading for mercy. Yoshio can only listen in absolute horror at the monster before him. Stunned, he realizes this threat cannot be ignored. Refusing to live with more regret or hide from his past, he prepares to risk everything to stop this menace. As he closes the distance, Naga retreats with a mocking grin, warning that any violence will only lead to Yoshio's own arrest. Yoshio is far from naive. He's been covertly recording the entire encounter on his smartphone since the start. Clueless to the trap, Yoshinaga continues his arrogant taunting. He claims to be a reformed citizen, calling their meeting destiny while plotting to kidnap Yoshio along with his primary target. Suddenly, Yoshio spots two shadowy figures approaching from the parking lot. Yoshinaga reveals these are his old reform school cronies, here to abduct Saki and exploit her ruthlessly. Their original plan was to film the act for revenge, but now, they've decided to perform their cruelty live. As the thugs draw their weapons, Yoshio's blood boils, yet he realizes that charging blindly into a 3-on-1 fight is a death sentence. Though fear lingers, he draws strength from the memories of legendary warriors who faced far greater horrors. He steels his resolve against these mere mortals, causing one thug to hesitate at the sight of Yoshio's powerful physique and intense aura. Yoshio silently acknowledges that his grueling training is the only thing keeping them at bay. He warns them of the consequences, but Yoshinaga boasts that their gang connections will make any legal trouble vanish instantly. Trapped, Yoshio calculates a path to the convenience store, planning to use his recording of their weapons to ensure their immediate arrest. They are armed with a stun gun, a baton, and a lethal knife. A single slip against that blade could prove fatal in an instant. One hit from the stun gun would leave him completely at their mercy. Yoshio targets the baton wielder first, parrying the strike and slamming him into his accomplice with overwhelming force. He narrowly evades a knife thrust and bolts for safety, only for two more thugs to emerge and block his path to the store. Cornered in the lot, Yoshinaga sneers, ordering his men to shatter Yoshio's legs so he can't escape. Outnumbered 5-1, a sense of impending doom washes over Yoshio. But just as the lead thug lunges forward to deliver a devastating blow, he suddenly gasps for air and collapses in a heap on the pavement. Another thug follows suit, collapsing instantly. The remaining two burst into uncontrollable tears, as if hit by a wave of tear gas. Soon, all four are left lying helpless on the ground. Still standing, a desperate Yoshinaga demands to know what Yoshio has done. Despite his own confusion, Yoshio seizes the momentum. He boldly warns that he'd never face a betrayer unprepared, telling Yoshinaga to get his crew to a hospital or suffer the same fate. His blood boiling, Yoshinaga charges forward with a knife, ready to strike. Yoshio braces for the impact, but just in time, Yoshinaga succumbs to the mysterious affliction and collapses into a foaming heap. A bewildered Yoshio checks their bodies, confirming that they aren't faking. Though he'd happily leave them to rot, he fears being blamed if they actually die. He quickly heads into the convenience store. He frantically alerts the staff to the emergency unfolding outside. 5 men have collapsed, with foam spewing from their mouths. He waits for someone to finally call for an ambulance. Saki steps off her bus at a stop near the convenience store. She immediately notices the chaos in the parking lot as she watches the scene unfold. Multiple ambulances speed to and from the area with sirens wailing. Drawing closer, she sees paramedics administering first aid to the fallen men. They load them onto stretchers while police officers begin taking statements from the crowd. To her shock, she spots her brother talking to an officer, struggling to explain how he knows the 5 victims. Growing suspicious, the officer demands to conduct a search. He begins patting Yoshio down as the young man raises his hands in compliance. Saki approaches just as the officer asks to inspect her brother's bag, and she grants him permission. Yoshio quickly fabricates a story, claiming the men in the parking lot simply caught a bad case of food poisoning. He urges her to head home while he handles the authorities, noting that their father is already on his way to fetch her. Their conversation is cut short when the officer shouts in shock as Destiny, Yoshio's pet lizard, crawls out of the backpack. Scooping up the reptile, Yoshio calmly explains that it's just his pet. Despite the bizarre discovery, the stunned officer still insists Yoshio come to the station for formal questioning. Yoshio agrees but requests to hand the lizard over to his sister for safekeeping. He passes Destiny to Saki and promises a full explanation later before departing with the police. The interrogation drags on until the break of dawn, with Yoshio detailing the threat posed by the stalker, Naga. He provides a smartphone recording as evidence, prompting the police to take immediate action against the criminal. Fortunately, the audio cuts out early, masking the moment Yoshio threatened Naga and keeping him out of legal trouble. Finally stepping out of the police station into the fresh air, Yoshio stretches his limbs and squints against the blinding rays of the rising sun. He exclaims how great it feels to be a free man, a classic line he's always dreamed of saying. He's oblivious to his father and sister watching him. Saki questions his sanity while their father simply chuckles in understanding. A wave of embarrassment hits Yoshio as he realizes the reality of the situation. He asks why they aren't at work, but a worried Saki tearfully apologizes for dragging him into this mess. Yoshio reassures her, and their father suggests they finally head home to leave the drama behind. During the drive, Yoshio contemplates exactly how much he should reveal to his family. He realizes they'll discover the stalker's return eventually, so he decides to come clean now to soften the blow. With a heavy sigh, he begins to recount the harrowing events. Mid-story, Saki slams the car door in a sudden fit of rage. She's livid that her former stalker hasn't changed, and has actually evolved into a more dangerous threat. Her father immediately tells her to calm down. He then turns his attention to Yoshio, quietly scolding the boy. He reprimands him for being incredibly reckless. While his tone is soft, his words carry immense weight, and Yoshio realizes he's barely restraining his fury. Yoshio ponders the horrific torment he and Saki might have endured if those thugs hadn't suddenly collapsed. His father then commends him for doing everything in his power to protect his sister, expressing true parental pride. Stunned by this rare display of warmth and approval, Yoshio is moved to silent tears. His father notes how bizarre it is that food poisoning struck the thugs at that exact moment, feeling a rare urge to thank a higher power. Yoshio simply nods, sharing the sentiment. The authorities attribute the collapse to bad oysters the men ate earlier that day. It's a convenient explanation, but Yoshio isn't convinced it's that straightforward. Food poisoning might explain the foaming mouths, but not the choking or the agonizing eye irritation. It's as if they were hit by toxic gas, yet Yoshio emerged from the encounter completely unscathed. Upon returning home, he's met by his mother's frantic, anxious greeting. Once she's finally calm, he retreats upstairs to check on his lizard, Destiny. He recalls the object present at the scene, wondering if it triggered the parking lot chaos. Dismissing the thought as pure insanity, he fires up his computer to check on the village. The game loads, revealing the villagers buzzing with life and relentless energy. Looking at them, a wave of genuine gratitude washes over him. Their unwavering courage somehow gave him the resolve needed to shield his sister. With that thought, he collapses into bed and drifts off into a deep sleep. 6 hours later, his mother's voice jolts him back to reality. Expecting another delivery, he heads downstairs only to find a surprise guest waiting for him. To his utter confusion, he hears Saki's voice echoing from the guest room. He enters the room and stands there, completely stunned to see her. She explains she took the day off just to check on them after their terrifying ordeal. Touched by her genuine concern, he sits down and assures her he's perfectly fine. As they sit together, he realizes how long it's been since they've had a moment like this. An awkward silence descends as Saki's lively chatter suddenly dies down upon his arrival. She attempts to break the ice, mentioning his sister told her everything while stumbling over his name. He quickly intervenes, telling her that calling him Yoshi is perfectly okay. She smiles in relief as they both blush, though Saki still appears a bit troubled. She cuts through the tension, asking if the nightmare is finally over. Yoshio is certain it is, noting the hospitalized thugs have incriminating evidence locked on their phones. Saki finds peace in his words, especially when he demands she call him the moment trouble arises. She's overjoyed to see the siblings finally getting along again. The siblings both acknowledge the newfound strength of their bond. Chi's eyes widen as she timidly asks if he'd be willing to be her friend once more. He agrees instantly, shocked she even felt the need to ask, remembering how he'd spent a decade avoiding her. He finally realizes just how unfair he's been to her all these years. He admits that deep down, he always knew a face-to-face apology was inevitable. Offering a deep bow, he sincerely apologizes for pushing her away and declares he's ready to be friends. Chi forgives him immediately, slipping back into her playful self and teasing him like old times. He confesses that for the longest time he truly believed she despised him. She explains her absence was due to a sudden job move and frequent travel for work. After a brief hesitation, she stands on the verge of confessing her true feelings. She lingers with him while Saki watches on with a completely blank expression. Chi tries to switch topics but suddenly shrieks in terror, pointing behind Yoshio. He spins around, startled, only to find Destiny watching them intently. Saki is instantly intrigued, thrilled to see the cute lizard and asking to pet it. However, Chi is clearly paralyzed with fear. Yoshio suddenly remembers her lifelong hatred for reptiles and amphibians. He tries to comfort her, claiming that Destiny has finally gone away. But when she opens her eyes in relief, she finds Yoshio holding the lizard right in her face. She lets out a piercing scream and bolts away to find a hiding spot. Tearfully, she begs him to stop acting like a child, confessing she's always despised that side of him. Shocked, Yoshio offers a sincere apology while his sister continues to tease him. Meanwhile, Yamamoto is absolutely seething. Inside his cramped apartment, he glares at his phone with murderous intent. One of his bases has been unexpectedly decimated. He discovers that 3 players saw goblins from Fate Village raiding his territory. He curses the heavens, lamenting the massive fortune he's sunk into this game. He places the blame squarely on Yoshio for ruining everything only 3 days after their encounter. True to his word, Dull returns to the village to facilitate more trade. He arrives with the requested supplies along with several newcomers eager to join the fold. At his signal, 2 red panda beastfolk dressed as adventurers step out of the wagon. The merchant introduces the cheerful duo as Kan and Ron. Yoshio feels a surge of anxiety, unsure of how the villagers will react to these outsiders. However, the villagers greet them with open arms. Dull explains that the couple are actually elite craftsmen. They are masters of woodworking and possess high-level skills in both masonry and metallurgy. They previously lived in the caves, learning their trade from the legendary dwarven miners. Yoshio is thrilled to have such skilled artisans, knowing their talents are vital for the village's survival. He even finds their mere presence to be incredibly soothing. Several days pass following the arrival of Kan and Ron. With the cave now at full capacity, the villagers work to extend their defensive fences. The red pandas immediately construct a personal hut within the newly expanded area. They are now laboring to build a massive food storehouse to protect their rations. To top it all off, Yoshio discovers a game-changing secret. Kan and Ron are actually master spear experts. Beast folk naturally possess bodies far sturdier than any human. This physical edge makes them formidable warriors on the battlefield. While construction continues, Moss stays busy harvesting rare herbs. Previously, Yoshio received a mysterious vial of medicine as a gift from the villagers. Although their previous gifts were reliable, he still feels a surge of hesitation about consuming it. Nevertheless, he treasures their kindness and keeps the vial as a lucky charm. As the evil god's temptation looms, the villagers' combat prowess reaches a respectable level. If Yoshio maintains his focus until the month concludes, he'll amass enough points to summon another golem. His past anxiety has vanished, replaced by an electric anticipation for the month's finale. Days later, following a morning shift, Yoshio's boss outlines a grueling schedule of lunch followed by immediate work. They'll catch a few moments of rest in the van before diving straight into the night shift. It's a brutal routine, but one the entire crew accepts during the peak cleaning season. As the year closes, service requests flood in, turning December into a chaotic nightmare for the staff. They grind from the crack of dawn until 4 in the morning when the workload reaches its peak. Though they receive the following day off, Yoshio's physical limits are being pushed to the breaking point. He initially swore he wouldn't quit, but the overwhelming exhaustion is making the temptation to bail nearly irresistible. Returning home exhausted, he ignores the meal his mother prepared and heads straight upstairs. He offers a quick apology as he retreats into his sanctuary. Despite the fresh food waiting for him, he simply greets Destiny and collapses. He falls face first onto his bed, completely drained of energy. He marvels at the incredible dedication of those who grind at work every single day. It is a level of commitment he has never personally achieved. He believes these tireless members of society deserve far more respect than they receive. The next morning, his alarm blares, and he instinctively hits the snooze button. He finally forces himself to rise and immediately checks on the Village of Fate. There, he finds Carol offering a solemn prayer at the altar. Carol presents her favorite breakfast fruit as a humble offering to her god. She prays for everyone's safety, fearing the monsters summoned by the evil god's temptation. Deeply moved by her unwavering devotion, Yoshio finds the strength to get up and prepare for his own shift. Later, he mops the floors feeling completely drained of energy. Suddenly, a voice screams that someone isn't working hard enough. He turns to find his boss glaring and prepares to apologize for his performance. But Yamamoto bows first, and Yoshio realizes he wasn't the one being scolded. Noticing Yamamoto's exhaustion, the boss suggests he take a break if he's unwell. However, the sleep-deprived youth refuses, claiming he desperately needs the cash. Yoshio has noticed that Yamamoto has been acting extremely strange lately. The once cheerful and talkative guy is now a zombie, glued to his mobile game at all times. To make matters worse, he keeps shooting Yoshio some very unsettling stares. During their break, Yoshio finally decides to step up and address the situation. Yoshio secures a chance to visit the village of fate, but concerns about Yamamoto weigh on him, even as he struggles to focus on anything else. Suddenly, a young man appears behind him, noting how deeply absorbed Yoshio seems in his game. Yoshio quickly brushes it off, claiming he's merely killing time. After taking a few steps together, Yamamoto explains that the game's objective is to annihilate enemy bases, revealing that spending money allows you to command even more monsters. Yamamoto describes it as a base conquest game, but his co-worker turns with a crazed expression, declaring his love for playing the villain who wipes out villages. He raves about the visuals, explaining that the player acts as an evil god destined to crush humanity, a revelation that leaves Yoshio stunned. Yamamoto continues, detailing a system where defeating foes yields points used to summon monsters, with a pay-to-win option to bypass the grind. He admits that points accumulate rapidly if you pour in cash, confessing that he's already blown most of his salary on the game. Yoshio can easily imagine such a game from an evil god's perspective. Having sensed other players during the Mist event, the existence of rival evil gods isn't entirely surprising. Yamamoto isn't done yet, revealing a lucrative reward system. Destroying an enemy base nets a mountain of points, which can be traded for something substantial. And Yoshio realizes it's cold, hard cash. It makes perfect sense, especially since the Village of Fate has already sent him tangible offerings. Yamamoto reveals a staggering truth. He once earned 5 million yen from the game alone. He opens up about his tragic past. Raised in poverty, he was forced to drop out of high school to work after his father vanished, leaving behind a mountain of debt. Just as he thought he'd finally cleared his father's name, his mother's new partner fled, dumping even more debt onto his shoulders. While some argue a child shouldn't be burdened by their parents' mistakes, Yamamoto insists that family is family. He's consumed by rage at the unfairness of it all. Despite his massive earnings, he still can't escape the debt that has stolen his youth. Giving up now would make his entire struggle feel meaningless, leaving Yoshio completely speechless as he wonders if there's any escape from this cycle. Yoshio believes no child should inherit their parents' burdens, yet he finds himself unable to fault Yamamoto's resolve. He finds the man's situation both tragic and impressive, as Yamamoto explains that this new income stream has finally put him within reach of debt freedom. He secured his big break despite lacking formal skills or a proper education. When Yoshio questions why he's sharing such a personal story, Yamamoto quietly admits his true identity. He reveals his role as an evil god player, leaving Yoshio to wonder if he had been targeted as a rival from the start. He finally realizes they've been clashing in the shadows this entire time. Now, Yamamoto plans to settle the score during the evil god's temptation. In this high-stakes event, a game over means permanent retirement as Yamamoto walks away. Yoshio ponders if the story was shared merely to intimidate him into quitting the game. This game might be the only beacon of light in Yamamoto's otherwise bleak existence. But the exact same sentiment holds true for Yoshio. For Yoshio, his stagnant life finally began to move forward because of this world. It led to him reuniting with his family and finally landing a stable job. The villagers have become his true companions, and he refuses to let them perish. He declares that he isn't giving up without a fight. Yoshio vows to take Yamamoto head-on. It will be a one-on-one duel to the bitter end. On December 30th, the day before the evil god's temptation, he returns home after a grueling shift. His boss thanks him, showing genuine appreciation for his hard work and dedication. While his boss hopes to rely on him again next year, Masaki offers her congratulations and well wishes for the future. Yoshio remains humble and respectful, bowing as he expresses his gratitude for their support. He wishes them a happy new year, even as the dark influence of the evil god looms closer. While he hopes to avoid a clash with Yamamoto, a confrontation is inevitable as long as he plays the Village of Fate. Upon returning home, he makes a startling discovery. The house is deserted, as his entire family has left to visit their grandparents for the holiday. He had the option to join them but chose to stay behind, fully committing his focus to the game. To his surprise, a female voice greets him, and he follows a warm light into the kitchen. There he finds she, who is just finishing up the preparations for dinner. Noticing his confusion, she explains that his mother personally requested her to handle his meals. Seeing his stunned reaction, she wonders if he's even hungry at all. He quickly assures her he's starving, silently thanking his mother for making such a perfect arrangement. Just as he's about to ask about the menu, he spots Destiny, his pet lizard. The creature is loose again, stealthily sneaking its way into the kitchen. He lunges to snatch it off the floor, whispering a frantic warning. He reminds the lizard that Shah is uncomfortable around reptiles and demands it behave. The lizard ignores him, and he realizes he's the only one left to feed it while the family is away. He desperately pleads with Destiny to wait patiently in his room. To seal the deal, he promises an extra feast and a prime selection of fruits. With the situation settled, he bolts upstairs under the pretense of changing his clothes. Once the meal is served, he sits down with Shi and begins to eat. He praises the cooking, especially the deep, comforting flavor of the miso soup. He playfully suggests she teach his sister, Saki, how to cook. But Seia reveals Saki is already her secret apprentice, mastering the art of the rolled omelet. This revelation catches Yoshio completely off guard. Gazing at him with warmth, she asks if she can return tomorrow. Stunned, he admits he'd appreciate her presence, but insists she isn't obligated. He tells her she's always welcome if she enjoys his company, and Seia happily agrees, claiming she has time to spare. She proposes they prepare soba noodles together for New Year's Eve. As she continues to serve him, Yoshio wonders if he truly deserves this level of pure happiness. December 31st arrives, and with it, the dreaded evil god's temptation begins. Yoshio takes his place at the monitor, watching intently as the villagers prepare for their ultimate showdown. As the battle commences, he notices Destiny perched on his desk. He strokes its head, promising they will face this trial together. At 1 p.m., Merce, perched atop the watchtower, spots the first wave and warns the village of 5 oncoming black dogs, accompanied by 5 ferocious boars charging toward their home. A flashing alert signals the official start of the evil god's temptation event. As the beasts rush forward, Merce fires her bow, instantly taking down the first black dog. However, the remaining monsters scatter to evade her lethal arrows. The expanded perimeter makes defense difficult, but the villagers have a clever plan in place. To counter the assault, the very ground beneath the monsters collapses as they draw near. Several beasts plummet into the abyss, meeting a gruesome end. A week prior, Yoshio's prophecy had guided them to dig these massive pitfalls. They line the bottom of the pits with jagged stakes to impale the incoming horde. Several monsters perish instantly upon impact. Meanwhile, Moose steps in to finish off any survivors. To counter the ferocious boars and their reckless charges, they position stakes at head height, forcing the beasts to impale themselves through their own momentum. The real threat emerges in the form of black dogs, whose insane agility allows them to leap over the traps while more tusked beasts swarm the perimeter. An alarm blares as 3 black dogs breach the enclosure's boundary. Gams and Ron grip their weapons with white-knuckled intensity, intercepting the hounds mid-air and carving them down with lethal precision. Once the initial wave is completely wiped out, Yoshio notes that the extra reinforcements have secured the area, leaving no monsters standing. Capitalizing on the brief lull, Gans orders the villagers to prepare for the next onslaught. The villagers scramble to reset the pitfalls under Yoshi's expert guidance. These traps might lose their effectiveness if Yamamoto manages to exert absolute control over the beasts. For now, he can only issue rudimentary commands, making the pitfalls a viable defense as night falls, and both sides conserve energy for the bloody battles ahead. The monsters continue to launch wave after wave of savage assaults against the village, but the villagers stand their ground, repelling the invaders with unwavering resolve. During the fleeting moments of peace, the non-combatants rush food and water to the front lines, ensuring the defenders remain at peak condition. Yoshio feels a sense of relief as the operation proceeds without a single hitch. With his trump card still ready in reserve, he remains confident he can settle this before Saki arrives for the night. As he surveys the mountain of monster corpses, he begins to ponder Yamamoto's true situation. Yoshio wonders how Yamamoto is holding up and considers reaching out, but ultimately decides against it. He figures Yamamoto would only see it as a taunt, especially since their real-life bond has completely shattered. Having sworn to protect the game and its villagers, Yoshio steels his resolve and stays focused on the looming threat. As the clock nears 5:30, he finds it suspicious that not a single monster has attacked for an entire hour. This eerie silence follows the final wave triggered by the evil god's temptation. It's the longest pause they've seen yet, leading Layla and Russ to hope that the enemy has finally retreated in defeat. However, Gams remains on high alert, refusing to lower his guard. Yoshio agrees, knowing Yamamoto has staked everything on this fight, and won't back down without a struggle. Suddenly, a violent crash echoes from downstairs, prompting Yoshio to investigate while calling out for Saki. Finding the kitchen empty, he moves toward the living room to investigate the source of the noise. Yoshio stops dead in his tracks the moment he opens the door. He spots the shattered glass of the sliding door and a masked burglar standing in the center of the room staring him down. Stunned, he instinctively reaches for his phone to call the police. But his heart sinks when he notices familiar hair peeking out from beneath the ski mask. Recognition hits him instantly, and he gasps out Yamamoto's name. Hearing his name, the intruder responds with a sinister smirk. Months earlier, Yamamoto had returned to his rundown apartment to find a mysterious envelope in his mailbox. Intrigued, he opened it to find an invitation to be a beta tester for a game titled Destruction Impulse. He found it strange, as he had no memory of ever signing up for the project. With time to kill, he decided to scan the QR code and dive into the unknown. Just like Yoshio, he is instantly floored by the hyper-realistic graphics, sensing the game's massive potential. He quickly masters the mechanics, learning he can spawn monsters and command them to annihilate enemy targets. Yamamoto scouts various bases but moves on once he realizes he cannot conquer them on his own. Suddenly, a violent pounding echoes from his front door. An aggressive collector demands this month's dues plus all arrears, threatening him with dire consequences if he doesn't pay up. Remaining calm, Yamamoto transfers the funds and asks if their business is finally concluded. The man agrees once the funds hit his account, though he's stunned by the sudden windfall. Yamamoto dismisses his suspicions and promises future stability. As soon as the collector vanishes, Yamamoto slams the door shut and lets out a chilling, manic laugh. He is ecstatic. The game's destruction rewards have actually manifested as cold, hard cash in his bank account. After a short break, he logs back in to find a shocking discovery. His monster successfully raided an enemy base, causing his point total to skyrocket. Realizing these points translate into real-world currency, he decides to go all in. He begins pumping resources into premium monster upgrades to siege even larger strongholds. Earning a fortune just by playing feels like a dream. And while he doesn't care how it works, he knows this is his ticket out of debt. Later at work, his boss introduces him to a new face, Yoshio. Yamamoto notes Yoshio's sturdy build but is put off by his sickly complexion and bizarre demeanor. He doubts the newcomer will survive the grueling demands of the job for very long. However, as time passes, Yoshio's relentless work ethic and positivity earn his genuine respect. He begins to see the young man as a truly dependable junior colleague. During the next Evil God's Temptation event, Yamamoto is left seething with rage after being absolutely crushed. He expected an effortless victory, leaving him baffled by the powerful warrior who appeared at the end. He deeply regrets deploying his red Cyclops to the Elven village instead of the main battlefield. Learning that Yoshio enjoys gaming, he briefly considers using it as a way to bond. But he's stunned to discover Yoshio's unit obliterated his expensive red Cyclops during the earlier raid. Returning from work, he assesses his position and realizes he must now prioritize defending his own base. With his forces severely depleted, he can no longer afford to squander points recklessly. Suddenly he spots Yoshio playing a game on his phone. He's floored to realize it's the exact same game, Destruction Impulse, but Yoshio is playing on the enemy side. Suspicion takes hold, making him wonder if Yoshio has been secretly mocking him this entire time. Furious, he confronts Yoshio at work, admitting he knows they are rivals in the game. He specifically calls out their clash during the Evil God's Temptation event. Yamamoto is determined to use this game to transform his life and won't let anyone stand in his way. When the first wave hits, he attempts to outmaneuver Yoshio using underhanded traps. However, he is shocked to see that Yoshio's power has skyrocketed since their last encounter. The mounting pressure leaves him completely stressed and chain-smoking to cope. As the day drags on, he continues to puff on cigarettes in frustration. He eventually comes to terms with the fact that his plan to wear down his opponent won't work against such a brilliant strategist. He considers dumping cash to strengthen his troops immediately, but fears Yoshio's hidden advantage. Desperate, his eyes drift toward a baseball bat leaning against the wall, but he manages to restrain his dark impulses. He recognizes the sheer depravity of that twisted thought. Acting on it would shatter the diligent life he's built, but he clings to the hope of victory as his monster's power surges in the darkness. Needing to clear his head, he steps out to hunt for a fresh pack of cigarettes. But the moment he opens the door, he nearly collides with a mysterious, unsettling man. Clad in a leather jacket and dark shades, the stranger cryptically asks if Yamamoto believes in gods. Yamamoto snaps at him to get lost, though he can't help but feel intimidated by the man's intense aura. He realizes instantly that this is no ordinary religious fanatic. Offended, the man declares his devotion to the most wicked deities imaginable. With a sudden flick of his hand, he executes a hypnotic move that leaves Yamamoto completely dazed. Back in the present, Yamamoto stands in Yoshio's living room, white-knuckling a crowbar as his rival calls his name. The intruder slowly peels off his ski mask, revealing his face. Yoshio stares back with a look of pure distress, having caught his coworker red-handed. He demands to know what Yamamoto thinks he's doing. Yoshio pleads with him to drop the weapon, promising to dismiss the entire incident as a momentary lapse in judgment. With a sinister grin, Yamamoto claims they both know exactly why he's here. Yoshio tries to talk sense into him, urging him to resist the evil god's corrupting influence. Yamamoto snaps, mocking Yoshio's refusal to quit the game despite his desperate begging. He then cold-bloodedly lays out his cover story, a drunken brawl sparked by a tool found in Yoshio's own shed. He scoffs at Yoshio's protests, confident that society will side with a hard-working citizen over a total nobody. Since Yoshio has been off the grid for 10 years, he has zero social standing to challenge Yamamoto's spotless reputation. Yamamoto presses his advantage, claiming he has no desire to harm Yoshio. as a criminal record would ruin both their lives. He proposes a deal. Yoshio must play along and intentionally throw the game. In exchange, he offers to split half of the raid's massive cash haul. For Yoshio, the temptation is real. No injuries, a payday, and Yamamoto returns to being a friendly co-worker. The only sacrifice? Letting the village of fate vanish from his daily life forever. Skeptical, Yoshio locks eyes with him and demands an answer to one burning question. He asks if Yamamoto feels even a shred of remorse for his actions. He questions if attacking the village or seeing such lifelike characters die stirred any emotion within him at all. Yamamoto scoffs, stating that despite the hyper-realistic graphics, it's nothing more than a game. He claims that even if they were real, they're just strangers, nameless casualties on a news report. Yoshio admits he's rarely moved by violence on a screen. But he argues these NPCs fight harder to live than any reclusive shut-in like himself ever could. Yamamoto calls him a fool, lamenting the fact that they will never see eye to eye. When pushed to reconsider his stance, Yamamoto snaps in a fit of pure rage. He reveals a life of suffering, burdened by a toxic family and the crushing debt they forced upon him. Furiously, he challenges whether Yoshio, who's lived a soft life, truly understands the value of money. He points out Yoshio's decade of unemployment, questioning if he knows the true cost of his survival or the sacrifices his family made to carry him. Yoshio falls silent, completely unable to find a retort. He's cornered. He spent years making excuses, blaming society and bad luck, convincing himself his neat lifestyle was victimless. Now he has no defense against the harsh truth. Yamamoto declares this raid is the only opportunity a man with no education or skills can seize. He knows all too well that without a degree, society offers him nothing but a dead-end future. Yoshio is powerless to counter. Having squandered a privileged upbringing to become a lazy dropout, he realizes his hollow words hold no weight against Yamamoto's rage. Yamamoto is baffled, asking why Yoshio is the one crying when his own life is the one shattering into pieces. Yoshio retorts that Yamamoto is incredible, possessing a drive he could never hope to match. However, the younger man takes this as a cruel mockery from someone who simply coasted through life. But Yoshio's sincerity is chilling. He's struck by the horrifying realization that he's been fortunate all along, despite wasting an entire decade doing absolutely nothing. He understands now that if he had woken up to this reality sooner, his entire destiny could have been different. Instead, his pathetic inaction has transformed him into nothing more than a burden. Yamamoto merely chuckles, dismissing his words as hollow pity before erupting into a shout. He demands that Yoshio shut his mouth and watch the destruction from the sidelines. Pulling out his phone, he reveals that the final assault on the village has already begun. An alarmed Yamamoto then scales the watchtower to witness the carnage firsthand. He stares into the forest, stunned by the massive tide of monsters emerging from the trees. A nightmare legion of black dogs, wild boars, goblins, and colossal red cyclopes. Yamamoto declares this his final, all-out assault, having sacrificed every troop and every cent he owns for this moment. Desperate, Yoshio lunges for the computer, but Yamamoto brandishes a lethal crowbar to stop him. Just then, his sister enters the room, drawn by the commotion and thinking Yoshio has friends over, causing him to scream for her to stay back. Ignoring the warning, she bursts into the room, caught right in the middle of their tense standoff. Terrified and assuming it's a burglary, she immediately draws Yamamoto's murderous gaze. He swings the heavy crowbar directly at her, but Yoshio leaps forward with desperate speed. Using his own body as a human shield, he shoves her out of harm's way. The heavy metal bar slams violently into his shoulder blade. He is slammed to the floor, letting out a gut-wrenching scream of agony. Yamamoto revels in the chaos, while Yoshio fights through the searing pain in his back and struggles to breathe. He bellows at Saki to escape, prioritizing her safety. As she freezes in terror, he yells again, pleading for her not to let his sacrifice be in vain. Spotting an open sliding door, she bolts toward it in a desperate search for help. Just as Yamamoto begins his pursuit, Yoshio reaches out with his final bit of strength. He desperately grabs the hem of the villain's trousers, fueling Yamamoto's blind rage. Yamamoto turns with a cold sneer, asking if Yoshio is truly this desperate to act the hero in front of a girl. Before Saki can escape the house, a sickening crunch echoes through the air, and she turns to see Yamamoto mercilessly pummeling Yoshio. The boy lies completely broken and helpless on the floor, roaring at him to stay out of his way. Yamamoto prepares a final lethal strike while Saki watches in horror. She is paralyzed with fear, but suddenly, the blow halts in midair. Yamamoto stares at his hands in disbelief as his body refuses to move, flailing the crowbar wildly like a puppet on broken strings. That's when he notices Destiny, the golden lizard, which has rushed to the floor to defend its master. Realizing the creature is responsible for his bizarre condition, Yamamoto snarls and warns the lizard to back off. He aims the crowbar at the reptile, but Destiny is faster. releasing a cloud of lethal, poisonous mist. The toxin forces Yamamoto to drop his weapon and clutch his throat before he collapses in a heap. Saki rushes toward her fallen friend, but her heart stops when she sees Destiny crawling onto her slipper. Overwhelmed by panic, she stumbles backward, unable to escape the tiny creature. The lizard scales her body until it reaches her face, flicking its tongue with a menacing hiss. The shock causes Saki to pass out instantly. Yoshio witnesses the entire ordeal, yet he's still unable to move a single muscle. Paralyzed and broken, he wonders if this is where his journey finally ends. He desperately hopes Seia is safe before he loses consciousness. When he awakens, Destiny is standing right before him. The lizard grips a vial with its tail, a medicine Yoshio recognizes as Moose's creation. Realizing the creature wants him to drink it, he opens his mouth as Destiny pours the contents down his throat. Instantly, a violent surge of energy courses through his entire being. The liquid mends his broken body. He springs up with a shout, shocked that his voice has returned and his wounds have vanished. There's no time to marvel at the miracle cure. He immediately checks on Seia, who is unconscious but thankfully unharmed. Meanwhile, Yamamoto exhibits the same debilitating symptoms Yoshio and the others suffered earlier. It finally clicks. Destiny was the one who saved him before as well. Lifting the lizard, he realizes the Village of Fate is no mere game. It's real. He offers a heartfelt thanks to his savior. Suddenly remembering the village's plight, he checks his phone in a panicked frenzy. Yamamoto's forces are closing in for the kill. Seeing the inevitable, Gams herds everyone into the cave for a final stand. He knows they cannot survive against the overwhelming horde currently swarming the palisade. He orders the entrance sealed as the monsters tear through their defenses and demolish everything in sight. They retreat deep into the cave, only to find the passage choked with furniture, debris, and an old wagon. As the monsters batter the barricade, the villagers realize their sanctuary will soon become their tomb. Still, Kem refuses to surrender, clinging to a shred of hope. Pointing to the altar, someone cries out that they still have the god of fate's protection. But the statue remains motionless. Despair settles in as the group prepares to face their final moments. Gams expresses bitter regret for failing his vow to protect everyone. Little Carol watches on, confused and unable to comprehend the tragedy unfolding around her. After a heavy look from her mother, Moose pulls a bottle from her bag and hands it to the young girl. He explains the potion will help her relax, and without hesitation, Carol drinks it down, drifting into a deep, peaceful slumber. Lila cradles her daughter, tearfully thanking the elf for this mercy and finding comfort that the girl will be spared from the coming nightmare. A heavy silence falls over the group as Gam stares at the altar, suggesting they might still be able to save one person despite their hopeless situation. While rescue might be the wrong word, he believes it's a far better fate than dying here, though his cryptic words leave the others baffled. The priestess clarifies that they haven't made their daily offering to the god of fate yet, proposing they send Carol to the deity as a holy tribute. This shocking idea stuns the group, who wonder if such a feat is even possible, all while the frantic banging at the door grows louder. Realizing they are officially out of time, Gam ends the debate and decides to gamble everything on this plan. He places his sleeping daughter onto the altar as Layla offers a desperate prayer, begging the god of fate to watch over her. Meanwhile, Gam seeks forgiveness for his perceived failures, despite all the divine blessings they have received. Just as the little girl begins to radiate a brilliant light, Yoshio triggers the summoning of the golem. The statue of the god of fate erupts in a blinding white glow, and the villagers watch in pure awe as the titan awakens. The entity gently scoops Carol into its massive arms, marking its first divine act. Yoshio finally returns to the fray, ready to pull his people back from the brink of extinction. Joy surges through the crowd as the avatar appears. After returning Carol to her mother, the golem marches toward the sealed entrance. Yoshio realizes that Yamamoto has committed his entire force to this assault, meaning he can end this war right now if he wipes them out. He prepares to burn through every last fate point he possesses, putting his entire soul into this final stand. The golem shoves the massive wagon forward with overwhelming strength, pulverizing the monsters blocking the tunnel. It charges into the battlefield like a bolt of divine lightning. The golem tears into the monster horde, unleashing a storm of steel that shreds anything in its path. It carves a trail of absolute ruin, successfully clearing the tunnel for the villagers. Gams rallies the villagers to join their god in the heat of battle. The golem expertly sidesteps a heavy punch from a red cyclops. Identifying the beast as the primary threat, a black dog lunges forward, but it's quickly neutralized. Noticing the villagers have joined the fray, Yoshio leaves the lesser monsters to Gams and the others. He sets his sights on the 3 red cyclops instead. One beast attempts to crush the golem with its massive mace. However, the golem dodges and flips over the towering beast. The cyclops thrusts a sharp stake at its target. The golem deflects the strike with its sword while strategically pulling back. Aware that this will be a grueling fight, Yoshio commands the golem to strike the ground. kicking up a massive dust cloud. Blinding the monsters, Yoshio switches to long-range control, tracking the golem's position and ordering it to strike. It slices through a cyclops leg, bringing the giant crashing down. Another monster swings its mace wildly in the haze. The golem distracts it by tossing a well-aimed pebble. The red cyclops launches another attack, but the golem evades, causing the monster to accidentally bash its own ally. The golem then delivers a fatal strike to the cyclops' neck, reminiscent of a move from Attack on Titan. Having brought down 2 monsters, Yoshio turns his attention to the final enemy standing. The last red cyclops charges headfirst at the golem, but the golem dodges once more and leaps high into the air. It strikes a powerful finishing blow with its blade. He strikes the monster's face, ending its life instantly. Yoshio erupts in cheers for this hard-won victory. He rallies the villagers, urging them to pour their remaining strength into one final unified push. Following a brutal struggle, the villagers stand triumphant amidst a field littered with slaughtered monsters. The rest of the villagers emerge from the cave, their voices rising in a joyous celebration of their survival. Suddenly, an alert blares from Yamamoto's phone, and Yoshio quickly snatches it up. The screen displays a grim message. The game is over for Yamamoto, his player rights are revoked, and his memories will be purged. Yoshio reels in shock. He never knew such stakes existed despite his own recent brush with death and magical revival. The impossible is now his reality. He wonders if Yamamoto will truly lose every single memory of today's chaos. While Yoshio despises the enemy threatening his people, he suspects the game fueled Yamamoto's madness. He refuses to believe his friend is capable of such pure evil. Yoshio leans down and gently shakes the unconscious Yamamoto by the shoulder. He informs Yamamoto that the hour is late as the man stirs and regains consciousness. Yoshio spins a lie, claiming Yamamoto passed out from heavy drinking during a year-end party at his house. Confused, Yamamoto admits his mind is a total void. While it could be an act, Yoshio senses the memory wipe is genuine. Yamamoto reveals his only lingering memory. A mysterious man visited his home and performed a strange ritual on him. He claims the man hypnotized him into a blackout, a story that clashes wildly with Yoshio's party excuse. Hypnosis sounds insane, but Yoshio recalls Yamamoto's eerie eyes and wonders if a puppet master is sabotaging the game. The theory takes root as Yamamoto frets over his potential drunken violence and offers to make amends. Yoshio's mind races, questioning if another player is pulling the strings and using unique abilities to escalate the stakes. It's all too much to process. Forcing a smile, Yoshio reminds Yamamoto of his plans to head home after the new year. He asks if his friend is all right. Yamamoto apologizes for the trouble and departs, as Yoshio bids him a happy new year. He turns his gaze back just as she begins to stir. Waking in a panic, she frantically asks if he's all right and where Destiny is gone. Yoshio reassures her, proving he's unscathed and claiming she simply dozed off. To shield her from the chaos, he convinces her the entire ordeal was nothing but a nightmare. She accepts this, reasoning that he wouldn't be standing there unharmed if the danger were real. Believing Destiny was also just a fabrication of her dream, she fails to notice it sitting directly on Yoshio's head. With the panic subsided, she suddenly remembers she needs to prepare their next meal.